All right, we're live. How's everybody doing? I brought the Jubilee crew back, unfortunately. Sorry about that. They insisted, though, so that's why they're here. So these three lovely gentlemen were actually on Jubilee together.
Unfortunately.
What do you mean, unfortunately? That was a great opportunity.
I had to be in the same place as John at some point. And that was pretty rough.
Weird. That sucked.
Yeah.
That was
So yeah. I decided to bring you back, and I didn't want this to be just very, monochrome. So we included a minority member, John, who's Canadian.
Yes.
This is
pretty
typically
minority.
an American stream, but sometimes we like to include the minorities up north. We like to call our crazy uncle that lives in the attic the Canadians. So welcome back. Also, Tim is here, by the way.
So y'all.
Quiet over there. Fucking hell. So you guys bothered us and you said you should review the Jordan Peterson thing that just came out. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And then you kept bothering me. And then I was like, fine, we'll do it. Because if you bother me enough, I do it. It's got to be a lot of you. So that's why we're doing this. So I was on David Wood's channel last night to review the Jubilee stream, and we're an hour and 35 minutes in, and we finally start to review because they just kept sending in super chats after super chats, and I was like, why don't my followers just send in like 1,000 super chats to delay this? But whatever, we're here. We'll review super chats as we go through this.
Hunch, wink, wink, followers. Hunch, wink, wink.
Yeah, guys. I was like, wow, this looks amazing. But no, I said we would definitely review the stream tonight within 15 minutes, or the Jubilee episode. We're not going to go an hour of reviewing super chats. We'll do that after. So send them all in, and we'll get there for sure.
We'll need it probably just because there's not that much real content to cover, even in this Jubilee.
There's not
episode,
much substance. No, it's
What do you mean by what do you mean by substance? Is that the substrate by which you believe in something?
What do you mean?
Oh my god, it was the absolute worst. The worst selection that you could have for a Christian representative.
I knew this was coming for a long time, by the way.
So did I. Yeah. I got word.
Did you know it was Peterson though?
Yep, yeah, I knew right away the day it was happening.
Before they even filmed it. I was talking to somebody on the inside, and they were like telling me about the casting process and everything. And I was like, why did they do Peterson? They apparently didn't even know who like Craig or Turek and people like that were.
Yeah, figures. Yeah, so, figures.
Yeah, Jubilee definitely did not do, even with our episode, their due diligence and like research of like what would be a good lineup on both ends. They fumbled the ball 110%.
Yeah.
Like I got a message before, like from a friend who told me beforehand that someone got Jordan Peterson to admit that they weren't a Christian, which he does in the thing. And like, not a good look.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. You have a guy there who says he's not even a Christian, supposedly representing Christianity, surrounded by 20 atheists. And it's like, this is Peterson. He doesn't want to actually defend a position. He wants to be like the neutral guy in the group that gets to critique everything or make you think about your beliefs, but he doesn't have to actually hold to anything. This is one of my biggest problems with people like him. Pick a side. Like if you're not going to pick a side, don't talk about it. Like I don't talk about the church I attend, but I don't fight I don't fight Protestant versus Catholic versus Orthodoxy. I stay out of that. So I don't pick a side and I stay out of that. But at least when I'm defending Christianity, I'm defending Christianity. Like I'm not trying to be, well, I'm neutral. I'm just looking at the different beliefs and then just trying to critique them all. No, you can't do that. Pick a foundation. And some of the atheists like called him out on this. Like, what are you? I was like, okay, well, you should at least identify as something.
Yeah.
You guys noticed they changed the name too, right?
Yeah, it was when Christian versus 20 atheists at first, and then they changed it to Jordan Peterson. I really want to know how this casting decision happened at the end of the day. Like, the charitable part of me just wants to say that there is just a major miscommunication, and that's how this happened. I don't know at the end of the day.
I just don't think they know enough. They wanted clicks. Okay, you get Jordan Peterson on there. That's going to give you the clicks.
Yeah.
Come on, we know what they were doing. The clicks.
I'm just trying to be charitable.
Yeah. I think if they were to get someone like, Trent Horn, Frank Turek, or what is it, Stuart Knuckle guy?
Connectly.
Yeah, like them. I mean, like
Knuckle.
They're not going to get the clicks like Jordan Peterson's going to get. So
No.
they still haven't done. Now that they changed the name, at least they're admitting they still haven't done a Christian surrounded by 20 atheists. So maybe there's hope.
Yes.
But they've done the 20 verse 1 where the guy in the middle is like, I had no clue who that person was. Like
facts.
True.
Like,
yeah.
I don't think they needed like Jordan Peterson for the clicks. Like they really wanted. I'm almost convinced there's a psyop, but I'm not going to go there.
Conspiracy.
The Mormon psyop continues.
All right. Well, I'm still petitioning for me to be in the center. I doubt it will happen, but maybe if you people keep bothering them, I'll be in the middle someday. Who knows?
Dude, Jubilee. 2 Christians versus 40 atheists. Me and Mike.
You can't do 2 people talking at the same time. I don't know. I want to see.
Look, I won't talk, Mike. Whenever you're talking, though, I'll just be like, yeah.
Why stop there? Let's do 4 Christians versus 100 atheists. Let's just keep the roll going.
Why don't we just have a war?
Yeah.
I want to see David Wood surrounded by 20 Muslims. That's what I want to see.
I want to see that too. I think that is a
fun.
Beautiful choice. Beautiful.
He's got to wear his Quran shirt, checkmate jihadis, because now they can't stab him because, All right. So let's get to some super chats here. Then we'll jump into the review of the Jubilee stream. I'm only here because you's fans here. What is with the grammar?
It's because people just like me so much that it.
Mr. Thanman, give me a dream. You look good in green. That is a
speaking
image.
Of new merch, Jesus, destroyer of the pagan gods.
Show the back. Yes. So,
Nice.
So cool. That's linked below in the video description. I made sure it was in there.
So buy it.
Yeah. It's I wanted to put a crown on the skull so it looks like the death of a pagan deity. Do you think Peterson would defend Muhammad against the Al-Zut? Do you guys know what that is referring to? You two at the bottom.
No.
Oh my, you poor innocent children. Okay. Here, I will just read it to you. Okay. Now, Muslims dispute the meaning of this. I want to say that output. Okay. They dispute the meaning of this. They don't like it. But there is a hadith narrated by Abdullah ibn Masud. He says, the messenger of Allah sent for me. So we set out until I reached such and such a place. And he traced a line for me and told me, stay between the 2 edges of this. Don't go outside of it. If you go outside of it, it's all over for you. Then Abdullah said, and so I stayed there. Then the messenger of Allah went a stone's throw away or a little further or something like that. Then Abdullah mentioned a group of male members, men, who looked like Zut people. Okay? They didn't have any clothes on, and I didn't see their genitals, and they were tall and scrawny. Then Abdullah said, and they came and started to ride the messenger of Allah, and the prophet of Allah began to recite to them, and they started to move closer and lean around me and get in my way, and I became intensely terrified of them, so I sat down or something like that. And when the morning light broke, they began to go away or something like that. Then the messenger of Allah came back exhausted and in pain, or practically in pain, for how they had ridden him. He said, indeed, I am exhausted. Then the messenger of Allah put his head in my lap and went. And then the men came with tall white garments on. But the messenger of Allah had fallen asleep, and I became more intensely and terrified of them than I was the first time. So what does that sound like to you guys?
Stop. This is a Christian stream.
What are you talking about? I just read you a hadith of Muhammad being ridden by the men of Al-Zut. I don't know what the problem is.
Bruh.
Okay. Now, what Muslims say, let me give you their narrative. They'll say that these were not men of Al-Zut. They only looked like the Zut. Really, they were jinn, and Muhammad was reciting the Quran to them. And when it says they ridden him, that was just slang for crowding.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a thing. That's a thing that exists that I now know.
You're welcome. Now you know about Muhammad and the men of Al-Zut.
Okay.
What isn't there one too where it's like a rock saw Muhammad naked? So no, it was
Dude, there's so many.
The Rock?
yeah,
like Dwayne Johnson?
No,
You see, it's a miracle. Dwayne the Rock Johnson is prophesied in the Quran.
You may, Power Breaker says you may watch David Wood's super chats with more Al-Zut references. That's right. You guys can send all the Al-Zut references you want in super chats. We will read them. In fact, I will make Tim read them, and he will blush the whole time.
Cannot hide that. Nope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One more super chat, then we'll get to the video, and then we'll get back to them. Is your big my big? What type of steel? Why only this fans? Are you certain you inspire? Oh, it's Tim.
My vision actually got blurry there for a second trying to read that.
It says, is your big my big? What type of steel? Why only this stands? Are you certain you inspire? Oh, it's Tim. See, he remembered Tim was here, even though he's doing puns for the rest of us. So
to answer your question, to the first part, probably not. To the second part, it's copper, like aluminum. And yeah.
What are you talking about?
Don't worry about it.
Okay, let's get into this. As I promised, we would get into it within the first 15 minutes. And so the section I really want to review is this last section, Claim 4. Atheists accept Christian morality, but they deny the religion's foundational stories. I probably wouldn't have worded it like that. I may have worded it something like Christian ethics or Christianity is essential for Western morality or Western ethics, something like that. But let's get into this a little bit here.
All right.
My claim is that atheists accept Christian morality, but deny the religion's foundational stories. Hi, Bill.
Nice to meet you.
What's
I'm
your
Ian.
name?
I'm Ian.
Hi, Ian.
Yes. So God says that you can own people as property. He says that you can beat them with a rod too. He commands genocide in Deuteronomy and in Numbers and in Samuel. I mean, they have a goddamn baby barbecue in Numbers. Like, is all of this in line with Christian ethics?
Anytime we point out, hey, the system that was most influential in Western civilization for 2,000 years is probably very influential in how we think. They go, oh, well, what about where God talks about slavery? How could that be where Western morality comes from? It's like, it's always whataboutism. And whataboutism doesn't actually refute the point because it is by nature deflection from the actual point. All of what he said could be true. That wouldn't change the fact that Christianity is essential for Western morality, or what, atheists accept Christian morality. So because they're Westerners, they accept Christian morality because they come out of this Western tradition. Like, I just like, this doesn't even address the point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It does not. I mean, not to mention the whole like the really bad argument in the first place that God's commanding slavery and baby barbecues and all this other stuff.
Yeah, I was very curious what he meant by a baby barbecue in Numbers.
What was the passage he referenced?
Yeah.
Numbers what?
He didn't give, but he said like he had a baby
Numbers.
barbecue in Numbers.
I'm just gonna Google. I'm gonna Google baby. Man, the FBI is gonna come after me now. When I do baby barbecue.
Now, to be fair, I actually know Ian, and every time I've talked to him, he's actually seemed like a reasonable person. So I'm not too sure what his goal here, his rhetoric is, but I'm going to claim that it's partially from just like ignorance or understanding of the scripture.
Well, my first question to him would be like, why do you think genocide and slavery are wrong? Why don't you agree with the ancient Roman and Greeks that it's okay to genocide the barbarians? It's okay to enslave them. It's okay to use children as grape objects. Like, why are you against these things? Could it be that maybe, I don't know, our morality doesn't come from the Greeks and the Romans, as historians have noted, like Brian Tierney, Tom Holland, for example. Like, maybe, like, why do you think those things are wrong? Well, it's because Christian ethics, these seeped into the culture and changed a lot of the ancient ideas that it was okay to enslave. It was okay to massacre entire cultures of other people that were different from you. It was okay to do all these horrible, evil things Because, and then what does Christianity give you? The idea of universal equality. We're all made in the image of God. We all stand before God as one people of one family. That's where that idea comes from. So the reason he hates those things, it's becomes out of Christianity. So it's one of those ironic things we see atheists doing. They're attacking the Bible with ethics they got from the Bible.
Well, and here's the thing too, like just to continue on what you're saying, like someone mentioned in the chat, well, God must be okay with those things. But from the atheistic worldview, there is no God. We have an evolutionary thing that happens through Christianity. So even if it was true, at one point in ancient Judaism, they believed X, Y, and Z, which were abhorrent things. Through the evolution of Christianity, they eventually stopped believing in those things. And eventually that worldview fell over into the worldview that everybody holds today. So it's like you were saying, completely irrelevant in the past, whether or not they believe that X, because right now we believe Y, and it comes from Christianity.
Yeah.
I want to hit on something really quickly there too, just really quickly. There's a huge difference between God intermittently or in a place in time overlooking or permitting something for some X, Y, Z reasons, and him saying it's a good thing or being okay with it in the sense that it's like morally acceptable to do this or anything like that. In other words, like, again, if you look at any of our work on this kind of stuff in the past, we're talking about an incremental redemptive movement ethic. In other words, God is working with the broken people that he has and permitting certain things in certain times and places as he moves the ethical lines of scrimmage towards the Edenic ideal, if that makes sense. There's a huge difference.
That makes sense. Oh, that makes total sense. And sorry, real quick, John, let me just say this and then jump in after me. Robert Woodbury has talked about similar things, like in India, when the British went in, they wanted to outlaw child marriage. And they originally outlawed it, no marrying under 12. Well, the Muslims and the Hindus rioted, okay, over that. And then slowly in India, they kept raising the age of marriage to where it is now, even though people still go against that law in that country. Incremental steps. They were rioting over that. There probably wasn't a full-blown rebellion if they just would have set it at like 16 or 18. Incremental steps. We do the same thing in Saudi Arabia. We want women equal rights, but we can't just force that on them. Incremental steps. Let them drive. Let them go out of the house without a male escort, these kinds of things. But go ahead.
I was just going to make a quip. It's like they forgot what the word condone actually means. Because people make the argument, well, God condones slavery. Well, what does the word condone mean? It means to allow something that you know is evil, know is wrong.
Yeah. I actually like Peterson's response that he has to this guy. It kind of hits on the notes we were hitting on.
No.
So then God doesn't fit within Christian ethics.
Well, the biblical library is a continuing story, and everything written in it has to be contextualized by the entire text. There's 65,000 hyperlinks in the biblical text. And you can take pieces of it out of context and criticize them, and that's what you're doing. But that's a mistake. I think it's an analytic mistake because you're putting the cart before the horse.
I really don't think so. I think that if we say that something is Christian,
I just really want to, Tim. I know.
I know. I'm being quiet.
This is like Peterson's just spot on here, in my opinion. Actually, it's just he's sounding so esoteric that people probably missed it, which is like the ethical like status or the moral status of what God is allowing or not allowing in any particular passage needs to be contextualized within the total meta narrative rather than just the individual part of the narrative itself. Like that's this way simpler way to put it.
Well, and I also want to say, like, we also have to understand that within moral theory, the concept of permission or authorization is very different than what we ought to do in all circumstances. Those are very two different things. And that has to be contextualized as well. And so we can say, I mean, this is a big problem that atheists have when they try to their very best, but they fail to put forth a good argument from evil, right? Is you blur the lines between authorization or permitting and what is preferable in the sense of what is actually good. And so it's completely consistent for, let's say, at some point in time, even if we're going to grant as much as we can, that God authorized something. That doesn't mean you derive a whole ethical system right away from that. Right. And then we go live by that. It's also just not what the empirical data pans out to be, because that's just not what happened. So it's just very strange to me. But I think that very foundational moral just concept there. I mean, that's just getting missed, and it's not a good look.
And this is implied in scripture. Like Jesus says in Matthew
Yes.
19, the law of divorce was given because your hearts were hard. Numbers 22, these daughters of this guy come and say, hey, we want inheritance. Can we modify the Torah? And they go to God and say, yeah, we can do that to incorporate from your input. 1 Samuel 8, the covenant is modified so Israel can have a king. I mean, we see these kinds of things. It was a compromise with a stiff-necked people. So this idea that it's the perfect moral law for all times is just absurd nonsense that we don't claim. So for you to look in the Old Testament and go, how can you say that Christian ethics is like the basis of Western morality and atheists accept it? You're not actually understanding Christian ethics. That's not what we say Christian ethics is derived from. That's not what historians or scholars argue it's derived from that have written on this.
Yeah.
So, this is just, as I said, this is deflection from the actual point. And we get this all the time with atheists. The consensus of experts, as far as I have read, is that Christianity was crucial for developing Christian morality, Christian ethics, Western civilization, and how we think about these things. And they go, well, what about slavery in the Bible? It's like that is missing the whole point. Even if you're right in your interpretation of that, that doesn't change the Western society we have built is essentially come from tenets of the Bible. So even if you could argue there's contradictions there, okay, even if you argue that doesn't change Peterson's point, this guy has just completely missed the actual argument by doing whataboutism. Continue.
Does you?
So I think that if we say that something is Christian ethics, then I think that all of the books essential to Christianity would fit with it, especially if it's like the main character. When we're talking about
how do you deal
God,
with the morality of war?
So
how do you think you should deal with the
I just want to say something there
because
real
I feel
quick
like,
too. I think there's a problem in saying that Christian ethics comes from like the totality of the books, right? Because there's a lot in the books. Like we have the Psalms. I wouldn't say we could pull some Christian ethics from Psalms, sure, but I think Christian ethics comes from like the ideal. And Matthew Lynch talked about this in that book that you told me to read, Than, about Genesis. Or sorry, in the book of Genesis, that Eden was the ideal. This was the standard, the Christian standard. It's not everything that's said in the Bible is the Christian standard.
Yeah, this is why I get really frustrated when people read the Bible like it's a rule book.
Yeah,
I think a really good way. It's not mutually exclusive to the other ways to look at Scripture, but one of the best ways to look at Scripture is as a meta narrative of reality, and then in that meta narrative, in which you have like that lens on that helps you understand what's actually what you're reading and how to read it and what to get out of it. Because when you're looking at it like a rule book, I don't look at the early church and see people reading it like a rule book. Where is this idea coming from? I have no clue.
Yeah, it's a lot of modern evangelical fundamentalism.
Yeah.
So it's not even all evangelicals, but it's a lot of fundamentalism in there. You get people that want theophany, the idea that we should take the rules of the Old Testament and apply it to the modern era. But this is like a minority view, even on evangelicals, as far as I can tell. But then you get like these people that come out of that fundamentalist mindset or something similar, and then they just project that one view onto it as if that represents all of Christianity, and it just simply doesn't.
I feel like the morality, like I feel like Christian ethics, like this is kind of I guess I just think it's like kind of an absurdity to say that God doesn't fit within Christian ethics, but sure, well, we can go on my ethics. That's totally fine.
I don't know what you mean by an absurdity. What game are you playing with?
Well, I just think that it's an absurdity to say that the Christian God doesn't fit within Christian ethics, that like the Christian God isn't like Christian ethical.
I said that the specific statements that you made don't take the context of the stories into account.
Right.
And so that your analytical approach is faulty.
Sure.
Don't put words in my mouth.
Sure, then let's go through the example.
He's
got such an angry dad look to him right now.
Man, dude. Dude, Peterson, my assessment of Peterson this whole episode is either just like, dude, what are you doing? And I'm frustrated with him, or it's moments like this from like, yeah, like get him.
What's really funny is there's a lot of people doing a lot of if you read the comments, a lot of people are like, this is how a psychologist acts in a debate or whatever. But I think Peterson knows right away that he can sniff the agenda out on some of these key individuals who are coming up. He had one really good conversation, and we might play that. I don't know if that's in the cards or whatever. And it was completely different. It's like no, maybe he's just, a little bit a step ahead here. He understands what's going on.
The problem is Peterson doesn't understand the culture, the debate culture, the clip culture, the things like that.
Yeah.
And even if what he's saying might be like technically correct from like a psychological point of view, it's not going to get the ground that he hopes to get, because in this world of like a clip and a click, he's going to be clipped out of context and it's going to look really poorly for him. So for example, I saw a clip earlier today where somebody that I follow was accused of being a graper because they took a single clip out of context. But when you go watch the whole thing, that person was showing the absurdity of the other person's worldview. And I think that's going to happen a lot here with Peterson.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of that. And yeah, that's the problem. When you guys said it perfectly. I'm just going to leave it with that.
Example. Yeah. So, and I apologize. So let's go through the example. So in 1 Samuel 15:3, God says, go and slaughter
Atheist
the
favorite
Amalekites,
verse.
slaughter the men.
What's that?
I just said atheist favorite verse.
I know. It's how many times have we to point out the hyperbole of this
Mm-hmm.
passage? I mean, just over and over again. I mean, like, again, if all the Amalekites were slaughtered, how come Samuel can say to King Agag, as you made mothers widows, so shall your mother, or no, as you made women childless, so shall your mother be childless as well. I thought all the Amalekites were slaughtered. Apparently, Agag's mother is still roaming around somewhere, who is Amalekite. It's, again, this is hagiographic hyperbole in the text.
I mean, the Amalekites just show up again in the same book 2 or 3 more times.
Right. I know. This is one of the things Peterson is pointing out. You're not reading them in context. Like, come on. What are these stories trying to say in their cultural context?
And the women, the children, the infants. What's the justification for that? Is that in line
That's a
with
good
Christian
question.
ethics?
That's a good question. I don't really know what to do with the terrible, blood-soaked, saturated history of the human past. I don't know. And I don't think anybody knows. I mean, what you try to do in your own life, as far as I can tell, is to conduct yourself in a manner that makes such things much more unlikely.
I totally agree.
We're all saddled with the problem of the catastrophes that got us here, aren't we?
Yeah, but this one was commanded by God. That's the problem.
Yeah,
That's what differentiates it from anything else, is that this one, it's God
Do you
saying,
think that
go
there's
and
ever
do this
such a thing-
atrocity.
Do you think that there's ever such a thing as a righteous war?
I'm skeptical. I'm not sure. It would probably be situational.
So fighting the Nazis is not like a righteous war. I mean, like, yeah, I could think of several examples of
Wait,
righteous
but
wars.
he just did I hear Ian?
He
right?
went into philosophy of war. Peterson is asking a philosophy of war question, which is a real domain of philosophy for those that don't know, right? And it sounded like Ian said, no, but it probably depends on the context.
Yeah.
In other words, saying yes.
So that the reason why I want to hone in on that, because Stan, that's exactly what I thought he just said here. Then why, if he's fine with saying that, then now let's just go look at the actual context of the Christian meta narrative then, and look at that situation. If that's the argument that we're going to do, like if he's fine having a situational ethic, then what are you contextualizing the situation against? Right. That's what's going to inform the ethic here. So it's interesting that he would say that. It's like, okay, well then we're giving you the particular situation, right? So that's an interesting move that most atheists I think haven't even made, which is, okay, yeah, I'll situationally adopt this. Well, then I don't think that sends them down a path that they really want to go.
And like the Amalekites were like the terrorists according to the Bible. So if the biblical narrative is true, okay, Amalekites are raiders. They attack Israel from the back. And who's in the back? The sick, the old, the young. That's where the Amalekites are going. And they're raiding the Philistines. They're raiding Israel. They're not the best of people. So these are like the terrorists of the ancient world, for example. So like there is some sort of justice in there and going and attacking them. Now you go, what about the women and the children? Again, is that stereotypical language? Is it hyperbole? Probably, if you look at the context. Because if they were all wiped out in 1 Samuel 15, why are they showing up a few chapters later and David has to deal with them?
My favorite part is your entire explanation that you kind of gave is explained in 1 Samuel 15 too. One verse before. And it's like everybody seems to miss that. I just want to point out, I think the two of them are kind of talking past each other a little bit. I think Ian's trying to do like the rhetoric of like, why would God do X? And then why doesn't God just save the babies? Where Jordan Peterson's kind of making the argument of like how we wrestle with God and his commandments, and when he tells us to do certain things.
Yeah,
And that's what it seems to be to me.
Yeah.
For sure. Let's play this.
Well, right. Fair enough.
But this one
people
certainly wasn't a just war. The context for the Amalekite slaughter is that 400 years earlier, they fought one battle, which they lost. And God says, that's it. I'm going to wipe them off the face of the goddamn earth. And then 400 years later, he commands the Israelites to genocide their great grandchildren. That's not a just war at all. And all.
Well, he
Again,
gave 400 years.
That's the context, guys. Forget about the rest of the history.
Okay, so all right. I mean, okay, that's the context he chose to go with. All right, then. I was happy there for a second. I'm like, cool. We want to talk about context. We can talk about. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Why is Parker staring into my soul?
Yeah. Can we get off that? I don't like it.
I'm in danger.
The Amalekites were raiders. You can read about them throughout all these stories. These were not people that just fought a battle. They attacked Israel by coming up from the rear and attacking the undefended, the weak, the old, the young. This was the problem with them. And there's no indication they stopped. It's not like they just, we don't like Israel. Anyway, back to 400 years of peace. Like, that's not at all what they're saying.
These were not atheists, by the way. For anybody curious, right? These were not atheists. They were worshipping pagan gods, probably under the Egyptian rule. In other words, like, a lot of the conquest narratives are seen also as a continuation of the Exodus narratives. That's why you see the Jordan River being split, just like the Red Sea was split, for instance. In other words, like, these nations hated Israel and wanted to eliminate Yahweh worship, most likely, as well. Like, this wasn't just some passive atheists that didn't like religion and they wanted to have some freedom from religion and stuff. Like, no, that's not the context here. And I think a lot of people like treat this like it is that. This is like, in my estimation, I think all but one battle that you see in the conquest narratives are all defensive.
Yeah. Wait a minute. In the conquest narrative, you think it's defensive?
Not in the conquest, in any of the war texts. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure what you refer to, but I mean, like, there's again a lot of context is missing here.
Yeah.
And again, let me just go to the passage here, because what I want to do is I want to just put what Samuel says to King Agag of the Amalekites up there. So I believe it's down here at the bottom. So yeah, here, Samuel, bring here to me Agag, the king of the Amalekites. Okay. So Saul went out, didn't kill him, brought him back. And Agag came to him cheerfully. And Agag said, surely the bitterness of death is past. And Samuel said, as your sword has made women childless, so shall your mother be childless among women. This is not, hey, your ancestors attacked us 400 or 200 years ago, and now we're taking revenge. This guy has been causing raids, attacking villages, causing all sorts of unnecessary death. And now justice is coming on King Agag for what he and his people have done. So again, there's reason in this. You just got to read it in context.
Yeah. I mean, add in the context too, that the beginning of the Samuel narratives, God specifically doesn't want a king for Israel. For what reason? Because God tells them, if you have a king, my name will be associated with war and bloodshed, and the king will have all your people as warriors and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, God doesn't want any of this, right? It's Israel that wants a king, and this is a consequence of having a king. So, like, if you want to say that God wants all these things and desires all these things, well, guess what? Like, the whole context of the narrative you're pointing to actually points in the opposite direction.
But then, what about the babies?
Oh my gosh.
They're innocent, man.
Yeah. And they didn't get killed. Or if they did, they weren't the targets.
Yeah,
let's get to some super chats here. It should have been titled Wishy-Washy Atheists versus Committed Skeptics.
I don't know. Here's the thing. I don't know.
I don't think he's an atheist, but that is funny.
I
don't know.
I did find a very important video where Jordan Peterson debated Jordan Peterson.
Oh my gosh, that real smet. That's me too.
Those are great. I love those.
Yeah, I saw this. This is great.
How should we begin? Well, what do you mean begin? You think energy has unilateral derivation? Well, only if you broaden the metadata to include union ubiquity. What now? Well, that depends on what you mean by now. Well, what do you mean depends? Well, who is you in this instance? You think you're limited to this instance? Of course not. Time is a bastardization of cosmic arithmetic. This hurts my brain. Me too. It seems we can't agree on terms. Well, I don't agree with that statement. I don't agree it's a statement. This must be how Romulus and Remus felt when they orchestrated the building of Rome. Well, clearly I'm Romulus. No, you're Remus. I'm Cain, you're Abel, you're Brutus to my Antony. Are we stuck? We might be stuck. Uh-oh. Can anyone help dislodge the coarse synaptic latitude on display? Oh, I know. Say your favorite pompous phrase to control a conversation. Ready? Egalitarian malfeasance. Damn. Again. Metaphysical verisimilitude. Nope. Again. Qualitative capriciousness. Didactic frivolity. Ooh, good one. Is this proof that conversations with me are obnoxious and futile? Well, we have built a career around it, so I think it's easier if we just assume we're some sort of god. Deal.
That was great.
And yeah, that's my whole thoughts about this whole conversation with Peterson is like, there's a lot of times I'm just like, you're trying to stay in the air so you don't have to be grounded on anything and have to defend an actual foundation.
Yeah.
Sure. I think he made some great points. I think the atheist made some great points along the ways. I don't think that this is someone representing Christianity though, because he's not actually doing that in his own words.
Yeah. I would love to. Do you know if JP's gonna like do a rehash of this or give like his thoughts on? I'd love to see how he thinks it went.
Him to. If people force him to,
so.
he will. You know, so.
I think he left this thinking it was stupid and like he probably regretted doing it.
Well, what's interesting is I don't know if you guys thought about this, speaking about John and Than, but like, you know how afterwards you can kind of like hang out. Yeah. I wonder what that looked like. You know what I'm saying?
Do you think they went out to that food court we went to?
There ain't no way. I think he probably would have to leave right away. Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about it, like now that I know like the layout of that warehouse, that must have led to like some awkward standing around moments with each other.
That's what I was thinking too. I'm like,
The only problem with David Wood versus 20 Muslims is that none of them would actually come. You see? That is true. This is a problem we've had lately with Muslims, is that a lot of them,
I've heard,
they don't want to debate anymore. They want to just debate men on the street style, people that don't know what they're talking about. I have been trying to get a bigger level Muslim to debate me for months, and I finally got one set up for July.
Nobody told the Muslims that come into my live that they're not allowed to debate anymore.
It's smaller, more newer channels. I'm talking about the old guard, like Muhammad Ajab, Ali Dawa, Daniel Kikachu.
The big guys.
These guys. Yeah, they don't want to do it anymore. And those are the people I really want to debate, but no, they don't want to do it. I'll eventually start debating some of the smaller Muslim channels when I get the time. It's like how much of my audience is just benefit at this point. So when I get some free time up, I will debate some of the smaller Muslim channels. Right now, I'm focusing on other things. I have debates in Britain I'm already working on, and I got that debate I've been wanting to do for a while in July finally scheduled. So glad that's happening. Hey, IP, I want your thoughts on the rules Moses instructed for the priesthood in Leviticus. Things like dwarves being unable to present offerings to Yahweh. Oh, okay. Well, this is very ritual aspects of what's going on here.
They couldn't reach the altar.
That's it. All right. That size is up to you. It's going to be things like that. So this is ritual priesthood aspects. Priests are supposed to represent order. They're supposed to represent a sort of unique order to God and how they reflect these kinds of things. That's what's sort of going on. It's ritual aspects here. This has nothing to do with moral aspects, nothing to do with hate. It has to do with these are certain ritual aspects the priests have to do or be a part of. And again, they also have to be of the line of Aaron, for example. that you can't be women. This is all part of ritual aspects to show order in that culture. John Walton says it's about representing what appeared to be order and holiness in that ancient Near Eastern culture. What could they do to display these qualities, or these virtues, to those surrounding nations of that time?
Yeah.
And of course, in the New Testament, that's all been leveled. We're all the kingdom of priests, including people with dwarfism. So you got to look at it in its cultural light, its cultural context. Elijah says, I debated Ian, Parker, and Danny recently. They aren't good debaters. Believe it. Hey, everybody. Is there a distinction between moral relativism and moral subjectivism on ethics? Also, more like Thanos. Yeah, we were talking about that last night, Than. Why don't you go by Thanos?
Because Thanos isn't. I mean, we can change the nickname if you want, but the origins, like, there's an origin story to my nickname, Than. You know that, right, Mike?
No.
Oh, I was in a screamo band when I was in high school, and we were going to go on a tour, and my drummer was too lazy to put my name, my actual full Greek name on the marketing stuff. And he was just like, dude, what if we just called you Than? And then we looked up the word Than, and it meant death. And we just thought that was like super metal. So it just stuck ever since.
Is there a distinction between moral relativism and moral subjectivism? I'm trying to think.
It depends who you ask.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I was.
Like, if there is a distinction, some people might say that moral relativism is going to be about like morality being relative to different cultures, and some people might say subjectivism is unique to the individual. I haven't really seen it.
Subjectivism, which is going to be more group oriented.
Yeah, it really depends. I've seen it used interchangeably, and I've also seen distinctions being made. So, depends. Looked into idealism after you mentioned it, IP, and was impressed by the evidence for it. Good. Why do you guys think more scientists don't adopt it? Maybe a bias for materialism. When's the next Q&A? Than snubbed me last time. We'll try to do one soon. We did one in Australia, and so we did one recently. A lot of people missed it though. But
what did I do? What does snubbed mean?
I don't know. Apparently you snubbed him.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
No, it's a bad thing.
Bad?
You took it from them.
Took something from them.
Yeah. I don't know what this means. Ryan, I'm so sorry.
I don't know. We'll try to do one soon. I might do a private one in end of June or early July, maybe. Yes, I think it is a prejudice or bias for materialism. There's what was it? Max Planck said science advances one funeral at a time. Mm-hmm. There's a reason he said that. There's a lot of biases and prejudice to go into these types of things. And they're scientists. They're not focusing in philosophy. And that's going to be an issue as well. Yeah. So a lot of them don't know a lot of philosophy.
Philip Goff has a really good book called Galileo's Error, and you can follow the history of how scientists of today have inherited a lot of philosophical baggage and how they view that leads to materialism. So that's a good one.
Gabriel says, thanks for all you do. You're very welcome. Brandon says, Jubilee is pretty dishonest. Imagine for the 20 Christians versus one atheist, they replace Alex with apostate prophet who's converting to Christianity. Yeah, that's kind of what this feels like. Someone who's not.
I don't think they're dishonest. I just think they're ill-informed. I don't think they know the Christian worldview. I don't think they know the debate platforms or what's happening in the communities. So I think they just hear Jordan Peterson, Christian, put him channel. I think that's kind of what's happening.
Sure.
Greg says, if some ethics did enter our societal system from Christianity at some point after enough time, can't we trust that system on its own merits? Yeah, so this is the argument Lawrence Krauss was trying to make in my debate with him, and it doesn't work. A lot of the benefits from Christianity and sociology come from intrinsic religiosity. And we see as more secularism is increasing, we see lower rates of volunteering and charitable giving, higher rates of depression, these issues. So that's the secular goal. We take the good we want from Christianity and just build a society without the foundation. We're now realizing that doesn't work. So see my debate with Phil Zuckerman, who's a sociologist, as well as my debate with Lawrence Krauss. You could see me talking about it on Timcast a few months ago. No, it simply doesn't work.
Yeah, that Christian system doesn't continue to be the Christian ethical system. It devolves into something much worse than what you think the Christian ethical system is.
When someone asks why God didn't make a command against slavery to the Hebrews, remind them what happened when the U.S. brought democracy to Iraq. Yeah, good point. We tried to bring democracy to Iraq, and that obviously failed because those people are not ready for that in their culture. You just can't give people. I mean, God gave them plenty of laws they couldn't keep. Like, hey, he said, just worship me, and they couldn't even get that one. Like,
well, Mike, I think just as a clarification, I completely agree with everything you're saying, but what I always hear in the background is the atheist crying out saying, but wait, but God, isn't God omnipotent? Could he just snap his fingers and change everything? Why can we put that to bed? Why is that actually not a strong point?
Because God is not taking away people's free will. He's working with people in a culture and trying to move them along with him so they become participants in his plan, not robots.
Good.
The question also just assumes that unnecessary suffering needs to be gone away with. And you can just, I'm not going to be a broken record here.
So to kind of play devil. Oh, sorry. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, I can hear the Phil Bros saying, is it not logically possible that God could have actualized a world where people have free will and therefore, but they still only choose the best outcomes?
Yeah. And then the question then again is just going to be, okay, even if it is logically possible, one, we can ask the question of divine justification where the defeat condition comes in. And then we can ask the question of divine motivation, which is more going to be the divine psychology aspect. The theodicy explains that depending on the axiology you conditionalize on.
Well, I also want to say, like, we also have to understand that there are just certain things, and a lot of people will be like, no, you're limiting God here. But like, there are certain things that, given their context, God cannot alter. That there are certain things that God cannot alter, like what Mike is talking about. That if you want things that happen through free choice, that's going to rule out certain ways of doing things by the very nature of what freedom actually means. And so just because God's omnipotent doesn't mean that he can just all of a sudden arbitrarily violate the very natures of things like that. So again, it's like it's trying to get the goal here. So, but I think that's really, really good. That's all I wanted to raise there.
IP, Steele started an apologetics with you too. What? I was just down the hall at the Orthobros meeting. I thought I was going to have to fight my way out. LOL. Yeah, that will make sense coming from an Orthobro meeting. They can be pretty angry.
What is the beginning of the super chat?
I'm trying to still understand what this is saying.
Yeah, John, what does this mean?
I think it's saying because like when I started my like apologetics journey, I started by like watching your channel, and then also like dealing with Than and talking to him. That might have something to do with it.
Cool. Thank you for the super chat, Quay. Thanakin Skywalker says, challenge Jordan Peterson to a Mubahala. I will.
Dude, these accounts are just getting wild.
Okay.
Bro, I want to zoom in on this. Somebody email me that picture, please. That's
what's the email you should email this to?
Than@inspiringphilosophy.com.
Okay. Thanakin Skywalker, you email Than that image at than@inspiringphilosophy.com. We will put it on the screen.
Wait.
That's a good AI render right there. Yeah.
I'm gonna take a screenshot of that.
You got to email the image to us, though. We're very
disappointed. Just in case.
Yeah, I think I still have those other images. Oh yeah, I do. I can put up you as when you transition from Darth Vader.
Dan's always transitioning.
Hey guys, good news! I'm transitioning.
See, this is him after his transition.
Oh my gosh!
Look at him! Look at how excited that man is. He looks like he paid $3,000 for that Darth Vader outfit to wear it at Comic-Con.
He looks like he manages a Staples.
That's what I was gonna say. Bro,
man,
upper level management.
Beautiful. Yes, we need both of these images. We need
somebody in the chat said to make me as Thanos. Yeah, somebody should do that. That'd be funny.
Okay, send the super chat in. We need Thanos to comment now as Than. But in the meantime, we're gonna get back to this this wonderful conversation that goes wildly off track. But let's just let Parker stare into our souls for a couple minutes here. No, don't. Okay.
Also, a genocide is not a war.
Well, a genocide can be a war, but
Absolutely not. the genociding of the Amalekites, the men, the women, and the infants, that's not a war. The infants aren't combatants.
Look, I already said that it's very difficult.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, Than. He's stating genocide, but aren't they all Canaanites?
Oh, yeah. I think I forgot how the saying goes. All squares are a rectangle, but not all rectangles. Not rectangles or whatever it is, right? That thing. In the same way, you can say like all Israelites are Canaanites, but not all Canaanites are Israelites.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's not an ethnically driven battle.
So yeah, wouldn't this be like saying Alaska genocided Texas if they went to war?
There's cultural identity markers between Alaskans and Texans that you could probably still make the argument there.
That classified as a genocide?
Yeah, because genocide isn't necessarily going to also be only ethnically bound. But the whole entire point here is that these battles were not ethnic or geographical or like
Or
religiously.
annihilation.
Yeah. Like
they weren't based on they weren't based on the actual, like, no one, God never says kill the Amalekites because they're like an inferior race or anything like that. It's sin. It's always sin related.
Yeah.
Past and to know exactly what to do about it. The answer I gave to the gentleman who is sitting here before you is that it's necessary to read a text like the Bible at all of its levels of analysis simultaneously. And there's a directional morality that emerges across time that has its roots in the Old Testament, for example, with its restrictions against murder specifically, that makes itself manifest in the Christian texts as the insistence on voluntary self-sacrifice as the foundational belief. That's a profoundly anti-violence ethos.
Do you have the belief in your theology?
Well, what do you think of that? Wait a sec. Now redress what I just said.
So I'm about to address it, but I'm addressing it with a question. Do you think that God is by his very essence perfect?
But like that's
not at all. And I'm so glad that Jordan said, no, what do you think of that? Like, actually stay there.
yeah.
Answering questions with or addressing something with a question is, unless it's a clarification question, like actually not this random perfection thing. I know exactly what script I can sense.
Yeah, Ian's just running a script.
And he's about to go off topic.
Script, but the TikTok atheist version.
And he's about to go wildly off topic because he's going to start bringing up omniscience, which has nothing to do. Like, we are so far away from the initial claim, atheists accept Christian morality, but deny the religious foundations. We are so far away from that at this point. I'm surprised they haven't voted him out. Yeah.
I mean, to say that the actual, like, if we were to go back in time to when these were actually taking place, and we interviewed everyone, said, do you guys have a perfect being theology? Are you guys all perfect being theists? Like, do you think they would? Like, it's just a weird thing for them to be concerned with as far as what we're talking about right now. Perfect being theology has nothing to do with what's at stake here.
Yeah.
You'll have to provide more.
Sure, just like maximally great and all, like the great making qualities.
Sure.
Yeah, like flawless. Yeah. So,
okay,
so does a flawless thing change? Does a flawless thing reveal like more and better information over time, or would a flawless thing say, here's what's good, here is the absolute good thing?
That's a hardcore presupposition there.
Circumstances in time.
Yeah.
A perfect being working with imperfect creatures definitely would.
See, this is just really.
This is imposing your value theory into the Christian meta narrative. Again, I feel like I say this every single time, and it just happens. Okay, I'm going to stop. Go ahead, Tim.
Well, Fan, and everyone, I mean, this is a comment I wanted to make a few times back, but what's the common theme here? Do not think inside the internal logic of the Christian meta narrative ever, and then make your argument. That's always the strategy here. And so what he's doing here is he's saying, would God rather do this or that? One, he's asking a question. He's not making an argument, but you can tell that what his leanings are. But I mean, he has this idea that God immediately rather than over time is somehow more valuable. It might seem that way to him. I don't know why that needs to be like some necessary truth of logic. It's not. Like none of this should just be taken for granted. Like, make an argument. this is
Yeah,
ridiculous.
I don't see a contradiction. I don't see a contradiction in like a perfect being revealing things through time.
Well, no, because it's a value judgment. There is none.
Yeah, it's a value judgment, and this is why time and time again I'm like slowly becoming convinced that TikTok atheists are just closeted hedonists at this point.
Well, here's the thing. The answer is question. If God is with a baby, okay, and God wants to mature this baby to be a perfectly moral being, okay, he's going to do things differently at different stages of the baby's life. Like, for example, the baby's going to be allowed to cry more when it's a baby, but when it's becoming a teenager, a lot less crying. I need you to focus on this. We do this with our own kids. If you see a screaming child on a plane, you go, that poor mother. If you see a screaming 25-year-old on a plane with a mother, you go, what's wrong with that mother? She didn't raise her son properly.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean,
so absolutely a perfect being will give different laws for different people at different stages in their life, different cultures, depending where they are morally, what they're moving along with. You're going to expect that. That's how parents raise children.
Well, isn't that why trust funds exist?
well, here's the thing. Here's one thing I want to add, which is it all comes down to, again, he's just coming out flat out with begging the question in favor of a value judgment that he has. But the question is, if God, it's just this hypothetical. Okay, so we start if God desires, okay, let's just start with that. Let's just assume, for sake of argument, that if God desires person making, right? This is what the philosopher John Hick talks about, which logically entails a gradual progression of improvement of one in their knowledge, all the virtues that we could possibly talk about. If God desires person making, right, then the world's going to look a certain way. Yeah, we know that there's atheists like philosophers who say, well, then God could also have created the world initially where the only tendencies we have are towards good things. That's great. But if God desires person making, the world's going to look a certain way. And I don't know why person making is a bad thing. I mean, well, I just don't know anybody who would say, oh no, like growing into maturity is a bad thing.
And there's value in it. There's value in it.
Yeah, that's the whole entire point. I'm not going to go into a whole entire spiel on my theodicy here. At this point.
Well, and you mentioned something about like people could have been made to just be inclined towards that good nature. And I know it's like, this is going to be stupid. You guys might laugh at me, but you know, in Skyrim.
Sorry, man. Keep
Mike's not going to know this because he doesn't do video games. We know Skyrim, that dragon, the good dragon.
Nerd talk. I'll be back.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He makes that statement of like, is it better to just be good or to be an evil being that strives to be good? And so,
yes,
I like that saying. I think it's something to think on of like what leads to the highest form of good, just being good or striving towards goodness.
What the hell? You know, I'm not going to spoil it. But I have a surprise for everybody because I'll be filming a reel.
Please keep your shirt on this time.
Yeah, I have never taken my shirt off in front of you guys. Only Tim.
We're taking our shirts off.
Tim has seen me shirtless many times. But anyway, have you really? Anyway, I'll
or where Los
Angeles. I'll be filming a reel to just show you guys after this stream. I'm actually filming a reel. There's like a pop culture movie that was really popular last year, 2 years ago, and I watched it when I was on the way home from Europe, and I was blown away because in this movie the main character chose to go into the broken human experience over her perfect utopia, and her rationale behind it was, I want to make meaning.
Oh, what's the movie?
What?
What's the movie?
I'm not going to say it. It's going to be a surprise. People will have to be on the lookout for the reel.
All right, let's get back to this guy completely derailing the conversation off into omniscience.
Well, we know some of that.
Wait,
Tell the truth. That's one.
That's totally fine, but presumably...
No. You don't get to skate over that. That's totally fine.
It's a straw man of my position. It's a straw man of the argument. So the argument is
that... Wait a sec. You said find one maxim that's transcendent across situations.
I didn't say any of those words. I'm not sure what conversation you're a part of.
Don't be a smartass.
I'm sorry.
I need to clip that.
I love that.
I can use it as a soundbite. Don't be a smartass. Don't be a smartass. Don't you know,
that
Holzer?
was a good one. That was good, Mike. Yeah.
Seriously, I mean it. If we're going to
Oh, I'm clipping that. That's gonna be a soundbite.
have a serious conversation, conduct yourself properly.
Okay.
Okay. Rephrase your question.
That was a
because
dad
missed-
moment.
Yeah,
That was a hardcore
that's
dad
right
moment.
there. That's
Oh,
years
man.
of Peterson just being completely desensitized to like just being just shredded through the mud in the media. He's over it. He's done. He's done crashed out. Like he's over it.
Or an and he's already, he's long gone. He's annoyed. Well, to be fair, again, we are so far away from his original claim at this point. Like, why even have this conversation?
That's
Like,
actually so true.
I missed it. I tried to answer it.
So in my mind, I guess by my lights, a perfect being doesn't change. A perfect being, if they're maximally good, maximally moral,
Does our understanding of the perfect being change?
our understanding might, but
Okay, how
presumably
do we
what the
distinguish?
perfect being
How do we
is
distinguish?
revealing.
Well, I agree. How do we distinguish between that, though, at the human level?
How do
so-
we distinguish between whether
Between our transforming understanding of perfection
they
and
go.
perfection itself.
Between
Like,
our
if we can-
good-
I think at this point,
that's-
some of the atheists started to realize, like, maybe I'm projecting, but I feel like this is just so far off the original claim. What's the point? This is going nowhere. This is you start to see the flags come up now, and you saw this one guy. I think it was Greg. It was sort of like, this is just off topic, man. Like,
Well, I
maybe-
think
maybe-
Jordan had a great question there. Like,
Yes.
this progression and development of our understanding of these concepts is a perfect point to make there.
Jordan nailed
that-
it on the head, because there's like Gavin Kerr, I think, talks about this, and then of course Orthodox philosophy on like the energy essence distinction, right? Is like you have the creator, and then you have the creature, and you have the creator's interaction, and the creature's perspective, how they interact with the creator, is going to be very different than the creator's perspective of how they interact with the creature.
Not to mention, I actually don't really understand the intuition that a perfect being can't change, depending on what you mean by the word change.
What
I
do you
really-
mean by the word change? Okay, what
This
do you
isn't,
mean
that's
by the
not a
word
Jordan
change?
Peterson type, but what do you mean by this? I'm just saying, I don't really get the intuition there. I don't,
A lot of Kermit the
Wait,
Frog.
Sam, what do you mean when you
But
say
what
that
do
we
you
can't
mean by
change? Do you mean
intuition?
morally, or do you mean like are you talking about intrinsic?
well, what do you mean by what do I mean?
Listen, don't be a smart ass, okay? Don't you know?
We're having a
Yes, Mark.
discussion. Conduct
Yeah,
yourself
yeah.
properly.
And that's
I
that.
would- Listen, if any of the atheists would have just said, "Sorry, Dad," that would have been the best moment of the whole thing.
Yeah,
I would have.
No, it would have been sorry, Zaddy, because they're all Gen Zers.
Oh,
What's a
yeah, they're all
zaddy?
Shut
Gen
up.
Z pilled. Yeah, I know.
What is this?
Can only- yeah, well, we can only see through our own lenses.
Presumably a perfect being would be revealing all of these aspects all the time, especially if God's outside of time.
Presumably.
I don't know how a God who's outside of time
How does
is
something
revealing different things at different times. That just seems like incoherent to me.
imagine?
Why?
It's easy if you have a giant like
He's not even using
painting.
words properly though.
You can reveal on different parts of the painting. If you're holding the whole timeline in your hands, you could go, I'm going to reveal here, reveal here, reveal here, reveal here. It's very easy to reveal yourself if you have the whole time in your hands, so to speak.
And
Well-
plus, there's models where people like hold.
I was
the
just
idea that
gonna
God
say,
is in
like,
time.
You could tell it's a TikTok atheist because the automatic like go-to is, well, he's also outside of time because he's just so used to hearing one particular model of God on TikTok and hasn't like engaged.
It's so funny because
I
he said presumably. Who's presuming anything here besides you, bro? And then the second thing he said, like incoherent. I think he confused the word intelligible and incoherent there. I don't think he knows what he's doing.
It also depends. Do we mean A theory of time or B theory of time? If it's B theory of time, it's not hard.
What if God is time?
What
What do
is
you mean
time?
by God?
What is time? Other than a metaphysical substrate of arithmetic.
Don't be a smartass, okay?
Imagine something that's perfect
Sure,
and complete.
sure,
Okay, and it's trying to communicate with creatures who are anything but that.
sure,
Well, they're going to get it wrong.
sure.
Okay, now
what
wait a sec. Do you blame that on the interpreters or the phenomena itself?
so in
Like,
this
for
case-
example, are you
well, yeah, I
perfect in
blame this-
attending to your conscience?
Hold on. At the point in time when God is literally the one who created us, he could have created us in a way where we would always be receptive to these principles, where we don't have to go across like a learning curve where, maybe we'll understand
maintain
like
free will.
thousands.
There you go. That's what you guys were talking about earlier. Like, why didn't God just make us a way so that we always did the right thing? And it's like, wow, how many times? Has this
Where's
been
the
addressed?
meaning making in that?
Yeah.
Where's the value? Again,
Exactly.
I bring this up all the time when I give this talk on the problem of evil. Okay, like what is more value? What creates more virtue? A world where everyone is perfect and just always does the right thing? Great, go watch episodes of the Teletubbies. Or go watch Lord of the Rings, where you see characters go through development. They develop virtues they couldn't have if they didn't face evil, like courage and compassion and all these important things in terms of meaning making. So there's a lot of value. There's a lot of virtue in creating a world where evil is triumphed over and defeated. And people always vote with their feet. Why do we always read books and watch movies that have triumph over evil? Because we recognize intuitively those worlds are far better. They have far greater virtues, far greater value than a world with no evil where nothing is ever defeated. Triumph is one of the greatest aspects in terms of meaning making, as Stan was talking about. So we would expect God to create the greatest of all possible worlds where he can have the most, he can maximize virtue, maximize triumph if these things are so valuable. And so we're not going to get that kind of world.
So I got a question on that actually. So does that mean that these meanings, these virtues are inherent, that they're just, they're not like created by God, but instead they're like equal to something, maybe his nature?
There's two levels to this, right?
Okay.
We're going to have the real, like objective values in all the domains, whether they're aesthetic, alethic, or ethical, right? But at the end of the day, the meaning making process is an inherently subjective process. So there's two levels to it, right? Like there's actual like hard balancing off that you can look at, but at the end of the day, the hard balancing off doesn't really matter that much, because what truly matters at the end of the day, at least in relation to trauma and like pain and suffering, is going to be the subjective nature of meaning making. If you look at any of the psychology of trauma or anything like that, like the meaning making model is the one true like proven model for healing from trauma and stuff like that. Tim, I don't want to take too much away.
No, I was just going to say, John, go ahead.
I'm not too sure if I've addressed I did my question properly. I'm more along the lines of like, I agree that we find more meaning in virtue ethics. I think that is inherent to our nature. But did God have to create us in a way that's where we found our meaning? Could not God have created us in a way where we found our meaning in a Teletubbies world?
Yeah. So
Like,
my
ahead,
answer
Tim.
to that would be not the degree of meaning that you would get
Exactly.
in the kind that we're speaking of. So you can think about it being graded, right? The scale of meaning. Like, sure, like, yeah, like you can have a meaning in a Teletubby world, but is it the same meaning you get from dedicating yourself to liberating people from disease or something like that?
Right.
And even though there's a subjective aspect to there, those are just two different scales of meaning.
Yeah,
Even
I agree.
just
So
with,
does
even
that,
just
does
as
that
it,
mean
like, just as with my kid John, for instance, right? My oldest son is like really digging into like being tough and stuff like that right now. Okay. And there's times where he thinks he's tough because like he was able to jump and do something, right? But he's like not that excited about it because yeah, I jumped over that thing. It was kind of scary, but it was cool, right? The other day though, he was riding his bike and literally just biffed it, right? Like he got up though and like looked at his arm, looked at the scrapes on his arm, and it hurt, but he was like amped up because he realized that like that pain didn't really do much to him and he was able to like be tough about it. Again, really minute, like not high stakes scenario here, but it's like a proof of concept, right? Like the degree of meaning making oftentimes comes in relation to the degree of pain.
Yeah. So I understand. I'm maybe I'm not being clear. I'll try one more time and then we'll move on.
Have you tried being smarter with asking your? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I'm pretty dumb. I'm working through it. Listen, I appreciate you guys helping out the special needs kid and bringing him on.
I'm just giving you crap.
Man, you know what you did, bro.
Okay, so I agree that there's definitely more meaning in that, but meaning is all based off the interpreter, right? So we have something that happens. It's how I interpret that and how I derive the meaning from it. Could God not have created us in a way where we live in the Teletubbies world and we've now interpreted the Teletubbies world to derive more meaning than, say, in a world that we have like virtue ethics and have to overcome certain things?
Yeah, so my answer to that would be I actually don't think there's a problematic outcome here if we say yes, because then both worlds end up at identical destinations. meaning God is then not morally at fault for using one or the other. Because if you let's say that a world where someone dedicates 16 years of their life to liberating people from disease, and then a Teletubbies world, and it ends up being equally meaningful, then you actually can't make an argument. Well, why didn't God just create the Teletubbies world? Well, they're identical in meaning anyway, so it's just a toss up. Roll the dice.
The other issue with this hypothetical would just be the fact that, like, I think we live in a world where, like, because let me put it this way: the subjective meaning making capacities that we have are going to be reflective of our ability to actually apprehend true value itself, right? There's going to be like a symbiotic relationship between the subjective aspects of our meaning making capacities and the objective reality of value itself. So if God creates this Teletubby world, and he creates us in such a way where our subjective meaning making happens in a way that's not reflective of objective reality itself, I would actually argue that that's the kind of world that God would not want to create, simply because our meaning making capacities are not going to be reflective of objective reality, if that makes sense.
For the sake of time, I won't press any more.
Yeah,
and
I would just
I like
add,
your question, John. I actually really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah, and I would just add that, like, when I talk about in my video the problem of suffering, I think you're going to get the most kind of meaning, virtues, value out of triumph, and also the law of triumph, which I talk about there. It also is the promise that when we go through these processes, we're made into better creatures, and then all of our sorrows are turned into joys. This idea. So it's not just the process; it's also the end result. We can't leave that out, because that's a very important part. The end of Revelation, he wipe away every tear, sorrow will be no more, this kind of thing. But going through the process, of course, creates the best kind of creatures who've experienced triumph, who've gotten virtue, who've had the most value, the most meaning making. And I would argue that I don't think it is logically possible to get those kinds of meanings, that kind of value or virtue out of a world without triumph. But
so does that logically follow then that those meanings are that they have their own nature or ontology, their own inherent value, and they weren't assigned that value by God?
It depends on. See, now we're getting into deep into metaphysics, and I would take a scholastic realist position. It's like these are things that are just identical to God's nature in terms of how he thinks. Like these are just logical truths that are grounded in, of course, God's nature. But I mean, you know, that's now we're getting deeper into metaphysics. For sure.
Here's the real answer at the end of the day, John.
Did you guys see my cat push open that door?
No.
Yeah, pretty awesome.
Yeah, John, you could wait for my book on my theodicy to come out, and
I'm not reading your book, bro.
I don't blame you.
Stop plugging yourself.
All right, let's get to super chats here. Thank you, Jesus, for becoming a channel member. Hey, there's a line over the U. Okay, I figured that's what it meant. Okay, I think if these skeptics saw what the Amalekites and others were like, they would take up swords themselves and join the fight against them.
Possibly, yeah.
If there is evil,
I don't know. It depends on the skeptics. Some of these skeptics, I'm like, I feel like they wouldn't be brave enough to.
Yeah, I don't think. The moral theory.
These questions are for everyone, but in terms of worldview, what might you and Jordan Peterson agree on? And on his rhetoric, what are your critiques? Well, it depends.
I don't know. It depends on what you mean by agree.
What do you mean by agree? Okay,
guys, stop being a smartass.
What is a worldview? Is it the way I view with the planet, or like reality itself? But what is reality?
Don't be a hoser, you know.
In all seriousness, I would love Jordan Peterson to make better attempts to try to understand what other people's rhetoric is and answering those questions instead of like overall arching narratives of like what it could mean in like the subset of the nature of the sentence.
I would actually love to have a conversation with Jordan Peterson. Just to that'd be so cool.
Would be awesome.
How would you ask Jordan Peterson to try to get a straight answer out of him on whether or not
I wouldn't try to get a straight answer.
But I know you wouldn't. But how would you do it if you were to you had to do it? Like what kind of sentence would you say?
It is impossible, John. Don't you make up these impossible challenges and expect that's impossible. Okay.
Well, okay. I don't even mean this as a joke, but you have to reinterpret what you mean by a straight answer when you're talking to Jordan. because in his whole framework, right, a straight answer is going to look different. So,
what is it? What does straight even mean?
All right, we're moving on.
If reality is four-dimensional, then there is no straight line.
In 2025, what does straight mean is a bigger question.
Oh my gosh.
Than, I need to get big fast. Should I shoot steroids up my... No.
Trend.
All right.
Trend.
Moving on now. Rip Sus IP. Well, what happened to Sus IP? I don't know. Would love to fight Big Steel.
Everybody wants to fight me. I'm okay with it. Set it up. We'll do it for charity. You fly me out. I'm game.
Freaking Canadian always.
awesome.
Oh yeah, it's so nice. I'll just fight you. Don't you know it's fine? Did God foresaw my atheism since before creation?
Maybe.
Yeah, depends on your view of foreknowledge.
I don't know, bro.
Yeah.
If the answer is yes, I don't see an issue with this either, though.
IP,
God
you need to do more
foresees foreseen.
debates with other philosophers. I'm debating Stephen Law next pretty soon here. So yeah, just look out for that.
Why is there an
and then-
eggplant there?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
weird. Freaking weird. Also, Greg says I was one of those atheists at this debate. Your question earlier, we didn't really get to talk with JP after.
That sucks.
He was sort of whisked away.
Like,
Like,
was Greg
Thank
the
you for that. Thanks for closing the loop.
was
on that.
Greg's the more masculine looking dude on there? Yeah.
You're
Well,
just
like
being
gray
nice.
hair.
I know where Greg is. I looked it up because I saw.
I'm not saying this person doesn't look masculine, but that's not the same person you're talking
This
about.
is Greg. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, that's Greg, dude. That's
Yeah.
what he's like. Actually, one of my favorite
Oh.
like atheists.
Yeah, Greg's dope. Greg's
Dude,
hilarious.
Greg,
I don't
if
know
you're
where it's
listening
from.
still, dude, like I actually really liked your approach. I thought it was pretty cool.
Actually, every time Greg's on Jubilee, I'm like, I'm a fan.
Oh, okay. So he's been on
Yeah.
multiple times.
I'd actually
what
love
do
to
you-
talk to Greg.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
But
straight
what
up.
do you mean by Greg?
What do you mean by talk?
What do you mean by that?
What
Okay,
do-
yeah. What do you guys want to say? What happened to Alex after your thing? Are you allowed to say that?
Oh, we just. I mean,
We
he
partied.
got whisked away too. But
Didn't he get-
But,
didn't he get-
and then we all went out to a bar and got some drinks and
yeah, it was actually great. Yeah, like rooftop type of situation. It's fun.
Yeah, he's pretty chill.
Let's be real. That debate was one Zionist atheist versus 20 atheists. Okay, James. Thank you.
very cool.
Greg, you got cooked. You couldn't even grasp what he was saying. He was on levels above you, little bro. Listen, most of us don't know what Peterson is saying half the time, so we're all there.
I was on
How
track
could-
the whole time. Just saying.
Shut up. How can we tell that the earliest manuscripts that we have are reliable? I was
Of what?
recently made aware. Do you have any original, or do we have originals anymore? Yeah. Let me address this really quickly. If you look at the work of C.L. Porter that is cited in the book Dethroning Jesus, written by Darrell Bach and Dan Wallace, they point out that if you look at Codex Vaticanus and P75, they're of the same family of manuscripts. However, Codex Vaticanus is not using P75 as a source. It's using an earlier ancestor. And P75 dates to what? Like the beginning of the 3rd century. And he argues that the combination of that shows that these two manuscripts would go back to probably to the sometime in the 2nd century, probably early in. However, Tertullian also says in his writings that many of the originals still existed in his time when he's writing at the end of the 2nd century. So we have manuscripts from the times from around when originals were still available, probably before the Diocletian persecution, when many of them were destroyed. So we do have plenty of good evidence that they're being written very early, and they're coming from manuscripts that will probably be first generations after the originals, if not the originals that could have been lost or destroyed sometime in history. However, as you look at the work of Dan Wallace, he points out there is no evidence that any textual variants affect essential Christian doctrines. We can look at the different manuscript families, see where changes have slipped in. Note that most of them don't affect any of the meaning of the text. Most are just spelling errors or grammatical issues. Very few affect the meaning of the text, and none of them affect essential Christian doctrine. So we have very good evidence. These are very reliable. We also have a lot of internal evidence that Craig Blomberg has talked about in his books, like The Reliability of John's Gospel or Luke Vandewey's book. The Historical Tell is one of his books. Eyewitness, he has another book on Luke as well. Forget the name of it. But we've all these good evidence that of these very reliable. What are you doing putting that up there? All this good evidence of these very reliable, that the New Testament is pretty reliable. So for more evidence, see my series on the reliability of the Gospels. It's a playlist on this channel.
It's only 6 hours long.
Yeah, only. That's how much evidence we have.
Wait, did the picture show?
Oh, you didn't do it right, Than. You got to let me do it. Freaking ridiculous, man.
What'd I do? What did I do wrong?
You messed it up. I'll fix it. There he is.
Oh my god.
Wait, you gotta take down there you go.
You look like the guy that would look at girls and be like, guys shouldn't do that. By the way, I'm over 6 feet.
Do you want to listen? Do you want to listen to me say? Do you want to listen to me play Wonderwall on my acoustic guitar at the and this bonfire? By the way,
Yeah.
your boyfriend's a dick.
No wonder this guy became Darth Vader. Look at him. Everyone was making fun of him. Roman says Midian was genocide, but appeared later in the text. I mean, again,
Nope.
a lot of that is hagiographic hyperbole. For sure. Is murdering the defenseless just war babies? Is murdering the defenseless just war babies?
Yeah,
So-
babies were not the targets of the war efforts.
No. If you read Richard
Again.
Hess's work, he says this is stereotypical language to just mean everyone in that group. So
Also, like
and-
women and children as a merism, for instance. Like,
yeah, there
all
weren't
that
any
stuff.
babies in the Amalekite raiding parties, is what the point is. These are
Jo-
stereotypical language.
Wilco, Willink, or whatever the heck his name is, Navy SEAL, kind of points out like you cannot go to war without innocent people dying. Like it's just a thing that's going to happen in war.
Multiple nations that were said to be destroyed in the Bible appear later in the text. Seems to me it's exaggerated war language. Yes, like medieval monks saying they killed 300,000 enemy soldiers. And we see this in Herodotus, for example. Your cat's doing weird stuff, John.
Yeah.
We see this in Herodotus, exaggerated numbers, for example. It's a common theme. We see this in like the annals of Tutmosis III. He says he destroyed, like he annihilated the Mitanni army, but then we see his more fights with the Mitanni after that. They're making deals with Amenhotep II, his son, and all, you know. So I mean, this idea, this is just the typical war language of the day. This is my reason why I'm getting fed up with atheists, or at least the online atheists. They never ever think from a Christian frame of mind, rather assume their position and apply it to Christianity. Powerful.
yeah.
I didn't know what to say, but how would you go about writing a fantasy where you allude references to Christian God without making it obvious? Listen, here's what you do, okay? You make him a lion. You make him the Jesus lion, okay? And then you have him show up with Father Christmas occasionally, and then Jesus lion dies on an altar for the sins of humanity, something like that. That works. That sounds about right.
And then you make that lion a black woman.
I'm literally, I am writing a fantasy novel to complement my Theodicy book. Tim, you know about that already, but
Whatever, nerd. I don't know. I'm not a fantasy writer. I maybe follow the way J.R. Tolkien does it. I mean, he's got allusions to Christian theology throughout his works. Thank you, Adam, for becoming a member. I think it's important to take into account what love is, and in what
is
world
love? Baby, don't hurt me.
don't quit your day. Don't quit your day job.
No more.
And in what world can virtues of love can be maximized, if that makes sense?
it depends on what you mean by maximized. Is there true? I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah, check out my video that I put up earlier, The Problem of Suffering, a Christian Response. I kind of allude to that throughout there. You know, I don't you're going to get the greatest virtues, values, love even, I think, in the type of world we would live in, not a world that lacked evil and triumph. Then don't worry, I'll buy your book and never read it. And then he gave me the
Nice.
finger. Oh no, he gave John the big finger.
Yeah, he's giving John the finger. We don't like John. Just kidding, John. I like you.
Would there be a logical contradiction in saying creating a Teletubby world with equal meaning, making it possible because we don't understand true good without having any reference for evil? Hope I phrase that right. I think I kind of get what you mean, and I would argue I don't think that's logical. I don't think that would work. I think you can't get the greatest of all possible worlds without triumph, without meaning making in terms of building virtues, soul building, that kind of stuff. But I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts?
Well, it's like saying burger's the best food out there because you've never tried steak.
Yeah. I don't. People keep saying, "Well, can we just create a Teletubby world without you get the same type of meaning making?" And I'm like, show me what that would look like. We just can't do this in hypotheticals. Show me what that would actually look like. Like actually represent a good model. Because I would argue you're never going to get that same type of meaning that you would get in a world with triumph. I'm just having trouble understanding the specifics of where he's grounded or where he is nebulous in his beliefs. What would you guys agree on? What is this in reference to? You're talking about
Oh,
Peterson?
he's talking about Jordan Peterson.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
I don't know what he actually believes. He's not very clear about like
anything.
many things. I don't know what he thinks about models of God. I've heard him say he would presume that Jesus did actually like raise from the dead. But even then, like, he's hesitant to call himself a Christian. So like, why? I maybe I'm just not watching enough Jordan Peterson content, and that's why. But I don't watch people's content in general. So
Spider Than
Oh my
says, my
gosh,
Thanos
dude.
sense is tingling.
we need that pin. We need this picture too, you guys.
This
Please.
is
I don't-
amazing.
I'm
These are
pretty sure
awesome.
these are all being made by one guy, and they're
We need a
going-
collage.
I don't know how you have the time to do this. Like, look,
So
we got
funny,
Spider
dude.
Than, we got Thanakin Skywalker. Than is just a very usable name.
It is.
All right, let's go. Let's finish. I think I want to get to the omniscience thing and this guy's thing, and then we'll move on.
Oh gosh, I forgot about that.
Maybe we'll do it. Oh, also, if you believe in an all-knowing God, then free will is impossible.
Oh
because
God!
Wait a
if it-
sec. Let's
well,
not go
wait,
to that
because
yet.
you threw free will into the mix.
Well, that
you
was
know,
the answer to your
My
question.
blood hurts.
You said,
saying
why
that's
wouldn't God?
incoherent.
Okay, real quick, and then we're moving on. Omniscience does not remove free will. I've used this analogy
No.
before. If I had a time machine and I go, what is with your cat, man? It is distracting.
He wants
Okay.
attention.
If I have a time machine and I go into the future and I spy on John and I observe everything he does tomorrow, then I come back to today. Does my foreknowledge determine what John is doing? No. The foreknowledge is determined by what he did. Foreknowledge works as the infallible weather barometer. It's going to predict the weather, but it's not causing it. So God can foresee what we're going to do in the future, but we're still the ones that are causing those actions. And then he just picks the most optimal world, but we are still the cause of our actions in that world. This is appealing to Molinism, the use of middle knowledge, that kind of stuff there. I can't believe that even came up.
Knowledge is not causation.
Exactly.
Simple.
So the free will defense doesn't work, Mike, because
Well, he's getting it wrong because you know what? I'm not even gonna go into it. I'm not gonna go into it. I'm not gonna go into it.
it doesn't deserve it.
It's we could go through the difference between a defense and a theodicy. And
Yeah,
everything,
exactly.
But
Mhm.
yeah, I think Mike and John are on point.
Oh, wait. Here's what it is. Can you explain the stoning verses? The ones in the Torah, see my video, the misunderstood Mosaic law. I don't think those are explicit commands necessarily. It's more about
is he?
teaching
I
judicial
know what he's talking
wisdom.
about.
What is he talking about?
The old like in the Old Testament, like laws about when you're supposed to stone different
Yeah.
people for different actions.
Yeah, the other thing we haven't really
Yeah.
said in this stream, and we probably should have said it earlier, is that a lot of the Torah is not laws like jurisprudence.
Exactly.
It's a treatise on judicial wisdom, teaching judges how to think about justice. It's not laying down minimal laws like, oh, you got to stone them now. That's not
Yeah.
that's not what was the original.
It's not
intent.
law as we have in like modern Western society. That is a really new thing. Legislation as we have it today is a new thing. Like,
Yeah.
this is like wisdom literature. Almost.
It's like Proverbs. Proverbs is how
Yeah.
they teach you how to think about morality. You're not supposed to just read Proverbs and go, well, I'm supposed to do this. And I'm supposed to do that. You're supposed to learn how to think about morality, how to apply them, when to apply them. The Torah is like that as well, but it's just for judges on judicial wisdom, how to apply justice, what it looks like in an ancient Near Eastern culture. So it doesn't even apply to us today. IP, can you touch on the foreknowledge not being deterministic? Yep, just did. You're welcome. The Axiom Vault sent the very, very generous super
thank
chat.
you.
Thank you so much. To Danny, it is predetermined, but not by God's choice, by your own. This doesn't mean we weren't free to decide. You want God to offer an alternative outcome where you win the ultimate prize. You're locked in because it's already been determined by you. So this is not to us. With
To
someone,
Danny.
with someone going off in the chat or something.
Possibly.
Possibly, yeah. It's not predetermined, but not by God's choice, but by your own. This doesn't mean that we weren't free to decide. You want God to offer you an alternative outcome where you win the ultimate prize. You were locked in because you've already been it's already been determined by you. This seems to be what I was just talking about earlier, just recently, about it not being determined by God's foreknowledge or by God. It's our choices, and God is just aware of our choices because he has foreknowledge. But that doesn't mean it's determining us. God's foreknowledge is not fatalism.
Yeah. I mean, we could get into a whole entire spiel on modal logic here too, but
I meant to say that the Teletubby world is not possible. I was trying to say the world is logically impossible because we don't understand evil. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know if the world is logically impossible, but I would just say what's hard to justify in that world is how you could achieve the same amount of meaning making, triumph, virtues, values, these kinds of things. Nothing can defeat God's all-powerful foreknowledge, regardless of how much free will you apply against it. Says who? All right. I got it. Have it your way. Then, is your book on good schedule, or do you need more support? Stares intensely at audiences.
The book is paused momentarily while I'm co-authoring 2 papers in New Testament studies with some scholars right now. When the fall hits and the papers are done, that's when I'm planning on restarting with the book again. And slowly but surely, like you guys are really pulling through it for us here, for support raising and everything like that. Like, we're getting closer and closer to me being able to just dedicate all of my energy and time to this. So we're getting closer, boys.
If you want Than to focus on the book and to do more of this full time, please donate below. Inspiringphilosophy.com/give, and that'll get Than more time, because right now he's only partially being paid because we're still trying to fund for him. But anyone who wants to donate, there's the link. It's right below. What we need is more monthly donors, people who donate $5, $10 a month. There's 700 of you watching right now. If all of you donated $5 a month, we'd be more than fully funded, and we could focus on so many other important things as well, including...
Wait, Than's getting paid?
Yes, the laborer deserves his wage. Oh, my goodness. That guy looks so excited in his Spider-Man costume. He paid thousands of dollars to wear it to Comic-Con. Look at how happy he is.
It's actually kind of scary
how at graduation.
It's actually kind of scary how close they get with this AI stuff.
It's eerie.
Powerful. All right, what do you guys want to review next in this kerfuffle?
I sent my stamps. Anything from there.
I mean, I feel like we just covered everything there is really to cover. I mean,
shut up.
There's
where should we go to Greg?
I liked Greg.
Sure, I missed Greg. Yeah, we can do. I missed it, so it'll be new to me.
All right, let's go to Greg. Stupid thing. Okay, here we go. Okay, Greg, I'm pretty sure is like at 11 minutes or something, right after this guy with his incredible hair gel. Well, now it's being weird. Why is it not loading? Here we go.
Aha! Hi, nice to meet you.
How are you doing?
Good. How
What's
are you?
your name?
I'm Greg. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, we found Greg. All right, congratulations. We did it. All right, this is for you, Greg, because you sent in the super
honestly,
chat.
I would love to. I would honestly love to talk to you, Greg. You seem like a cool cat.
Okay, so I feel like you're getting at this idea of polysemy, where we have multiple related meanings.
Wait, what's the topic?
Right? Like, for example,
the topic is
atheists reject God, but they don't understand what they're rejecting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A famous painting can be emotionally moving in that it changes my emotional state. And when I was on the highway coming here to the studio, I was physically moving. I was changing my position. If I said, I believe the Mona Lisa is very moving, and you said, you don't really understand what you're saying, it's nailed to the wall, I would say that you're the one who doesn't understand what I'm saying, not the other way around. And the way that relates to this is there are many concepts of God, and I'll admit I find a lot of what you say about that interesting. I'm familiar with it. The idea of this kind of Jungian hierarchical thing, or as a metaphor or a symbol, or the kind of, atheist, materialist, literalist idea of agentic, omnipotent, omniscient.
One thing I appreciate about
intervenes
Peterson
in reality,
is that
right?
you can tell he's very attentive to what the opposing party is saying. Like, he's hanging on every word. He's really trying to take it in, really trying to understand what he's saying. One thing I appreciate about Greg is kind of calling Jordan Peterson out on the what do you mean by moving?
Did this guy,
I think in a good way.
Did this guy ever go up? The guy that's currently on the screen.
Mike's calling this guy out. That's funny.
I'm just wondering because, like, I listened to it when I was riding my bike, and so I didn't see everyone. And this guy, I'm like, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, I got distracted. Let's get back to Greg.
When I'm saying that I reject the concept of God, I'm aware of these other definitions of God. But I think that when we use words, we tend to only imply one meaning at a time. So the same way that I would say the Mona Lisa is moving emotionally, but I would not say it's moving physically. I would say I reject the concept of God in this very literal way. But
what literal way?
The way that God is this omniscient, omnipotent, agentic, supernatural being that sent his son down and has, caused miracles and all these things like that. The idea of God is
Do you think that there's an underlying unity of things?
Could you explain that question?
Yeah, seriously, explain the question because I don't understand where that came from.
Underlying unity.
Well, scientists, for example, believe that science unifies in a comprehensive theory. Do you? Yes, no, or that there are multiple competing truths? Those are the options. Either things unify or there are multiple competing truths.
I think that I know that, for example,
and this is what I'm talking about, where Jordan Peterson doesn't address the rhetoric of he's asking the question in the best way he possibly can. He went through all the explanation of how he uses words and how words should be understood. And then instead of Jordan Peterson just moving around the answer that he actually wanted, he gives like a convoluted answer that's not wrong. It's true. And if you're trying to think about these things, it's a good thing to think about, but it's not doing the due diligence of answering the questions for Greg that he's actually trying to ask. And I think that, to me, is a problem. I think it's just better to hear what he's saying and try to answer what he's actually asking.
Do you guys understand what Jordan is getting at?
Yeah, a little bit.
What is it?
Well, I think he's talking about how something can be true in one way, but true in another way. That's what Greg is saying. But Jordan Peterson saying is it can be true in a multitude of ways. It can be true in one way, in the second way, in the third way, and in the fourth way. So he's saying it can be true in the fact that it's moving to see it, but it could also be true in the fact that it's moving to move you from point A to point B.
I think there's a little bit more there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, John.
Like a theory of
sorry
of everything.
And why do you think they're doing that?
It's interesting. It's helpful.
But they also believe that there's an underlying unity to things.
In a sense, yeah. Like the material world and time and space are probably governed by universal laws and principles.
Partly that, yes, yes. But that the same thing might extend to a broader domain that would include imagination and value.
Could you help me connect that to the prompt?
I'm trying to define God, the God that I don't think atheists do a very good job of defining. Here's another question for you. What do you think guides you in your determination of whether or not what you're saying to me is true?
Can we go back? Can we stay on what we were talking about?
We are.
I just feel like Peterson is confusing Greg, and it's not Greg's fault. That's my whole thoughts on this, is that I really feel for Greg here, because I'm like, where are we going with this?
Yeah, I feel like Greg is like,
Greg's probably like, look, man, I got tops 2 minutes here.
I had this question, man, and smart guy, bro. Can you just do me a solid, bro? That's how I feel is happening right now.
Okay.
You're just uncomfortable with the question.
No, I feel like you're just kind of throwing different spaghetti at the wall.
Well said, Greg. Well said. I got it. Yeah,
you little linguini.
Okay.
I asked you a very specific question. What is it that you think guides you when you're talking to me to help you determine whether what you say is true?
Logic, memory, reasoning, sensory information.
How do you distinguish that from being governed by something that's false?
An interesting question.
How do you know the difference when you speak between what's true and what's false? So you could imagine.
I right? I can infer. I can.
From what principles?
What?
So, and what are you getting at?
Exactly.
Could you imagine Jordan Peterson being your
Is that
therapist?
reasonable?
What?
Could you imagine Jordan Peterson being your therapist? Because that's what he was before.
Well,
You're trying to figure out what's wrong with your life and like why your wife doesn't like you anymore.
I would say this is the unfortunate thing that's happened is that, and Jordan Peterson will tell this, he has psychology lectures that go into the early 90s. His entire majority of his existence has been just psychology. So it's not a good representation of like his clinical practice. I mean, you can read about his clinical practice online, like it's all good reviews and everything. But when it comes to religion, right, that's a different domain for him specifically. But people are gonna kind of throw it all together in one thing. So I understand what you're saying, John. But
I was just making it funny.
Yeah, I know, but but that is a especially amongst Gen Z, like that is the main impression, is that like, oh well, this is how this guy is, you know, in every practice, and it's just one of those things.
Conscious is defined by my empathy and my reason, or my foundational.
Define it any way you want.
Okay, so that's how I'm defining my conscience. Is my my conscience is my sense of
right
and wrong. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah,
Where does that come from?
I would say that comes from an evolved capacity to empathize and a recognition of the benefits of engaging with and nurturing that capacity. And then that empathy is constrained and guided by reason, right? Like, for example, I am driving down the highway. There's a kitten in the road. I'm going to empathetically feel, oh my God, I want to save the kitten. But then reasonably, like, I'm going to get hit by a car, right? So that's sort of the process through which I make ethical decisions.
Okay,
is
how do
empathy
you
constrained by reason?
Do you think that people can differ in their response to something empathically?
Yeah.
Is there a mediating principle that can tell you one person who's empathic and another person who's empathic that disagree, who's correct?
I have no idea where Peterson is going in this. Like, I have no idea. Like, this
Tim,
is exactly
you're acting like you know where he's going with this.
I do. Yeah, I do.
Where?
All right,
Just tell
Tim.
us.
This makes sense. So within his paradigm, I mean, he said in the beginning of he defines God as conscience, and so he's saying that if you are going to reason this way, you are reasoning the direction in which you're reasoning is directly from God. That's what he's trying to say. So if he's saying, oh, it's empathy, he's like, yeah, but what is that? What he's trying to get him to say is, I'm appealing to my conscience, and to Jordan, that's God. That's what he's trying to say. He's trying to get him to say.
So he's a panpsychist, or like.
So he's a motivist?
But like, this
Who
is
knows?
Wait, no, he's like a panentheist then.
Yeah,
listen,
I mean,
this is completely missing the point, because atheists can reject like the Christian notion of God, which Peterson doesn't hold to, and like they're right. This is the one claim that I really feel like the atheists were right most of the time in this section, because it's like, I think a lot of atheists do know what they're rejecting. They just don't know Peterson's version of God well, and it doesn't even make that a lot of logical sense in my view. Like, what do you mean conscience? Like, that's is it a personal source that we're talking about here that is the foundation of this conscience? Like,
You seem to think we're wrong in our assessments, Tim. Almost, I still.
No. I just think that Jordan has just such a proprietary framework that we're just inevitably thinking differently in what he's trying to say. I'm just like, yeah.
So
I think
it's so analogous. Like the analog here could just simply be like, you and I have a really nuanced approach to the problem of evil, and more often than not, people are just like, "What the heck are you even saying?" Until they take the time.
100%, yeah. Because when people think of God, they're not thinking of conscience. And Jordan's like, "Well, where does right and wrong come from?" And he wants him to say conscience. He goes, "Okay, boom, God." Then that's what he wants him to say.
Doesn't Jordan Peterson kind of make the argument usually like God is like the highest form of what you hold value?
Yeah,
in? So
yeah.
it's
What
almost
you
like a
most value,
metaphor.
God.
And
Yeah.
I think that's
It's a
where they get lost
Jungian
in the thought.
archetype.
The
lobsters.
It's funny because I mean we would say that about God, right? We would say that God is the most value, like the apex of value, but we don't mean it in the way that he means it.
No, he means it like what you hold to the apex of value. We're saying what actually is the apex of value.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and this robust metaphysical sense. Yeah, Jordan doesn't want to make robust metaphysical suppositions.
That's a problem. I think that's problematic. The Milkman says, I think Peterson's view on Christianity is similar to Carl Jung's view. A lot of his views are inspired by Jung's, except Jung might have converted for real. Yeah.
Well, he's definitely inspired by Jung. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Was Jesus referred to as a sorcerer in the Talmud? It says he practiced sorcery.
Interesting.
Is what it says. So
he walks like a duck, talks like a duck.
It's kind of an admission that he was doing something powerful, because they have to explain it away as sorcery. This is actually, I just read a book by Graham Twelftree on like Jesus, the miracle worker. And he's bringing up all these sources to argue that Jesus was known in his lifetime as a miracle worker.
That's actually like one of the arguments for like Jesus's miracles too. I think it's Craig Keener that pointed this out, is that like
Keener,
in the ancient Near East, like nobody doubted that Jesus was performing miracles. Like anybody who was in opposition of Jesus admitted that he was doing these crazy things.
It was in under whose authority or power was he doing it?
Yeah, that's what was in contention.
Can God be neutral? Why benevolence? Can y'all explain? Well, then he wouldn't be the foundation of moral goodness.
There's this thing called motivational Tim, go ahead. I saw you.
Motivational internalism?
Yeah, I was going to bring up motivational internalism, but you go ahead. I saw you.
No. I was just reading the comment. Dude, you're on a roll, man. Go ahead.
No, please. Go ahead, Tim.
You want me to explain motivational internalism?
Yeah,
okay,
please.
So it's this idea that your moral motivations are going to be determined by whether you perceive something to be good or not. So so the reason why I'm on this call today, right, is because I perceive that there's some value in being on this call today, right? So if God has only neutral, I guess, well, where do you want to go with that then? Because I just explained motivational internalism. So where do you want to go with that?
Sure. So motivational internalism, like Tim said, is just the central thesis that agents are going to like go towards and perform actions towards where they perceive value. And under human conditions where we have limited powers and we have liabilities, and we have like weaknesses that are not only just physically based, but also weaknesses of the will and stuff like that, and weaknesses of our epistemic abilities, we're going to make bad choices and trend towards this value just in virtue of our weaknesses and liabilities and stuff like that. But once you get rid of those liabilities and have all the powers, now you have an omnipotent creature that has all the knowledge of what's good and bad, and what necessarily falls out of that, given motivational internalism, is omnibenevolence, because God is going to have all the knowledge to go after all the good things and all the power to go after all the good things without any of the weaknesses of epistemic faultiness, misjudging something and doing a bad thing. He's not going to have weakness of the will like we do, where we might desire to do a bad action in virtue of the fact that we apprehend something poorly or lack the power to get it in other means.
And one thing I want to add on here that might simplify things for other people is, and I personally take this view, I don't know if you take this view, Than, or anyone else in the chat here, or the call here, but I believe that what you talked about, evil, is just it's kind of a natural byproduct of two things. I think it's a byproduct of both ignorance and that weakness of the will you're talking about. So if you put weakness of the will and ignorance about how to reflect on a certain situation, that's oftentimes how you get evil. And then, so it's very like almost like a Socratean kind of view of that. And so, if you have a perfectly irrational agent.
And that's why I oftentimes say that God is the most free type of creature as well.
All right.
Welcome to our TED Talk. I cashed this out of my book in chapter 6.
Okay. IP towards your $180,000 PhD fund. Yeah, I'm going to start looking into that, guys, and we'll figure something out. Last night,
that's how much it's going to cost you to get your doctorate?
I know. Last night on David Wood's channel, they said they'd crowdfund for me to get a PhD.
Oh,
so I'm going to start looking into it.
Is that the cost for it?
If I would go to someplace like Cambridge, I'm going to look around. I want to do something out of the States for sure, though. Probably something in Britain. Hammy says money. Thank you.
Money.
Money.
IP, throw this in your back to school fund. Caught the stream last night. You definitely should go back to school. God bless. Big John S. I just put all my friends on your stuff. God bless.
Thank you.
Awesome. Guys, questions on genocide. If God's saying to kill everything that breathes is just like an idiom, then why did God curse Saul when he didn't comply?
God didn't curse Saul because Saul didn't comply. God cursed Saul because of who he left alive and why.
Yeah.
God, Saul leaving the king and the best of the livestock alive was for self-serving motives.
Right. Greg has a really interesting interview on Paul Vanderklay's channel.
Who's
Jubilee
that?
has the contact details of all participants in the video description. Cool.
I'll check it out.
Yeah.
I like Greg.
Jordan massively misinterprets the still small voice from Elijah encounter. He always adds the still small voice within, not in the scripture. Yeah, Jordan Peterson does that. And yeah, that's not what the text is saying. It's not your conscience. It's Elijah's meeting God, like not his conscience. Jubilee should just abandon this and do more mubahalas. Yes, absolutely. Many will argue that Molinism collapses into determinism once God instantiates the initial conditions of the universe. Isn't this question begging against the agent causation and the disjunctive creative model?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well said.
Very based, Ryan.
Hey, I'm trying to get into Christian philosophy. Any book recommendations? Also, why would an all-powerful God create such a huge universe for such a small creature? I got my explanation, but I want to hear yours. My explanation is simple. When we're resurrected, we'll be alive forever, and then it'll be our job to turn the entire universe into Eden. The universe needs to be big enough to, work for that. You're muted, Tim.
I always just like the answer that God's just flexing.
Wait, small creature?
He's talking about you. You're a small creature, but the rest of us.
I mean, I would just say that creation isn't only for us.
Yeah, that too. Yeah,
that's the question. Just like presumes.
And I don't know. Again, it's just this whole protological thing where it's like we can't rule out the fact that there could be further creations down the line. Mm-hmm. It's not a logical impossibility as well. But
yeah,
there's a lot.
Yeah, Christian books, philosophy books. Philosophical Foundations for a Christian Worldview. Yeah, it's a great place to start.
Oh my God, that book's a drag to get through.
Shut up!
You're a drag to be around.
It's true.
That's a drag to get through.
It's a drag to get through.
Get out of here! What are you talking about?
Used to, John. I actually, not even joking with you right now. I used to read that book instead of my Bible in the back of the church on Sundays because I thought it was more interesting.
Well, I'm reading the second volume, so maybe I'm reading the wrong volume.
I read the first volume. Yeah,
I read the first one.
The first edition, that is.
Yeah, the first. Yeah, I have that right over there. Yeah.
Tell Wes Huff. Okay, excuse me. I will. Okay, ready? Wes Huff. Wesley Huff. Where you at? You got an extreme Mormon face. God bless.
Kind of does though.
Where did you get that whole thing from,
dude? You didn't see?
Oh, it's not. We're not in the same super chat.
No, we moved on.
Really This isn't really a pop level book, but you have to read Swin.
Open. Okay? Look at that book. How good that book that looks.
Hold on. I will have to find you the debate. So they're it's the middle of a debate where apostate prophet is debating this Muslim, and in the middle he just decides to call out Wes Huff. Like, it's the weirdest thing.
Really?
Yeah. So here,
I didn't know that.
I'll put it up for you so you can see it in all its glory.
Yeah, this is great.
And the audience should see it in all its glory.
I thought you said Muslims didn't want to debate anymore.
The big ones don't, is what I said.
Oh, Central.
Oh no, not this.
Okay.
Guy.
What do you mean by big? This one.
Everything I presented to AP will be in that Discord server. Listen, I'm tired of these Islamophobe guys. Wesley Wes Huff, where are you at? Wes Huff, where are you at? You little wing Islamophobe. You came up overnight.
I just love AP.
Wow. I didn't know that happened. This is amazing.
When did religious politics become MMA callouts?
No,
it was It was amazing. It was so hilarious. I fell out of my chair laughing when I saw that.
Where are you at? That's awesome.
There's a reason we call him Comedy Central Dawa. He's very good at comedy. I think JP, like Kierkegaard, criticizes the label of Christian as mere abstraction, insisting it demands transformative action, not just assent. That sounds like something JP would say.
I mean, I would agree with that criticism as well, but I'm still going to call myself a Christian.
Yeah. The thing is, we need to think more like Kierkegaard. We need to criticize the label of Christian as a mere abstraction, insisting it demands transformative action, not just assent.
No, Christianity is merely just a propositional system. It has nothing to do with experience or relationship.
Powerful. All right. Do you guys want to? What other parts would you like to review, or do you want to just move?
Do you guys want to do Parker or no?
Parker. We can do Parker.
What does Parker even say? I don't remember.
He does like he gets him on the if he believes in an omni god. I think that's where he tries to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Here we go. Okay.
I liked that girl, by the way.
Yeah. Oh,
she was actually super thoughtful.
Yeah,
I liked her. I liked her segment.
So this is something that I would agree with Peterson on. Morality and purpose can't be found within science. But I don't even think they even talk about it that much.
But that's like a weird thing to try to defend, because like science gives you the is, not the oughts, doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, what's funny is that like all the atheists were trying to actually defend that morality comes from science too, because they weren't understanding the difference between moral epistemology and moral ontology and all that stuff. But anyway.
How you doing?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I guess since you said morality and purpose cannot be found.
I know we signed a
John. Oh my god.
I know we signed a do or whatever freaking
NDA.
Don't talk about things. But I'm so
DDR.
mad. Whatever. I'm so mad that Parker there has got a freaking notebook, because we were all told no notebooks, and I'm seeing a bunch of notebooks, and I want my money back.
Well, hold on. Remember, they didn't say no notebooks. We could take notes on scene. We couldn't bring pre-written notes.
I bet you they have pre-written notes. I'm gonna put $5 down on that. I'm gonna ask Parker next time.
It would just depend on like what you're referencing. If you're saying a description of your psychological preferences would be considered within science, sure. But I don't think that you have to say that it comes from science in order to be like an atheist. As an agnostic atheist, I don't know if God exists, and I don't believe that a God exists. And the only ones that I would really reject would be like the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-good, perfect notion of God that plenty of Christians like prescribe themselves. So I guess
how is that relevant to this claim?
You're basic.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Exactly.
He said, "Finish your novel, please."
I do think some of the people that got up didn't want to talk about his claims. They wanted to transition to their claims, and they tried to move the conversation in that direction.
Oh man, do you think JP just like recognized the script right there and was just like,
yep.
Facing a position of morality and purpose in some like notion of God that isn't the same type of notion of God that typical Christians would prescribe. Your notion of God is
what typical Christians?
Yeah, typically when I talk to Christians, they say that they believe in an all-knowing.
How about Cardinal Newman, who defined God as conscience? He's a major influence on all of Catholic social theory. How about that Christian?
Sure. So do you believe in the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-good notion of God?
What do you mean by believe?
What is
boom, baby? Boom. Yeah.
I'm pretty convinced that this was just Jordan being like, yeah, you're not doing your script, man.
Well, you know what's funny is when Parker said typically the Christians that I talk to, I'm like, you mean the 18-year-olds on TikTok who like don't even know what the word hermeneutics is? Like what, like that, those Christians? Okay. That's his sample size he's coming from, by the way, guys.
TikTok.
You think it to be true?
That's the circular definition. What do you mean when you say you believe?
How is that circular?
Because you added no content to the answer by substituting the word true and believe.
I said you think it to be true.
All right. So if you believe something, you stake your life on it.
What do you mean by that?
You live for it and you die for it.
What?
That's what I mean by that. Isn't
I think
brother.
Parker's going to call him out here, And I actually kind of agree with what Parker's about to say when he.
No, I'm with you, John. This is where I started out in like Jordan's side, and then I was just sort of like, yeah, I don't know where you're going with this. I don't think that's how that works. And yeah, I think Parker's probably right here.
It isn't something that's associated with logical consistency. It's not declarative. It's not propositional. It's not a figment of your imagination. It's the presupposition of your attention and your action. And you're either fragmented, in which case you worship multiple gods, or there's some unity at the bottom of it that makes you an unstoppable force.
So,
okay, so you're saying
what?
So here's the thing. I think Jordan actually. So this is where I come back and I'm like, I actually understand what's happening here. So
okay, Tim.
So
sure.
So notice what he said.
The Jordan whisperer.
He said it's not declarative. What's a declarative sentence? What do we talk about in philosophy? A declarative sentence is a proposition, statement that's true or false. Jordan said, that's not what I mean when I say believe. So he instantly just said, I am not going to say a belief is a doxastic attitude. So he says, so he right off the bat, he's distancing himself from the philosophical notion of belief, and he's instantly making it to the human experience of what belief, what's a byproduct of something that you actually believe in, right? You know, you stake your life on it. So I think right off the bat, he's saying, yeah, I just have a different convention of belief than you. That's how I'm taking this. What do you guys think?
But maybe he should have said that.
True.
That would have been easier than this nonsense.
Saying that you don't believe something if you wouldn't die for it?
Not really, no.
Okay. So then,
how would you define belief? Something you say?
Well, so I explain. Like, I could believe it is the case that this pen exists, but if someone like threatened my life, right, I would lie in order to be able to save my life, right?
Well,
like, I
hold
think
on.
you would do that too.
That's
You
silly
would,
though, because like saying you would lie about it doesn't change the fact that you believe in it.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is the thing is like that would have been so easy for Peterson to say. Oh, not to be fair, it's hard to think of things on the spot. I get it, but like. Said we got this run around and it was like throwing, as Greg said very well. I think you're just throwing spaghetti against the wall.
You wouldn't lie to save your life?
Don't be so sure.
You wouldn't lie to save your life?
How much do you know about me? I didn't lie to save my career. I didn't lie to save my clinical practice.
Would you lie to like save your children, your mom, your dad?
I don't think lying would save them.
Can there ever be a circumstance logically that lying could save someone?
Yeah, and if you're steeped in sin, you're likely to live in circumstances. Like
yeah, this is the part. So
it just goes downhill.
Parker's gonna.
This is where I was like losing my mind. I'm like, okay, so the guy that was like born in Germany was steeped in sin, and that's why he's there.
Obviously, Than.
I just love his answer to like the hypothetical. He was like, I would never be in that situation. I just love that.
listen, audience. It's a sin to be born in Germany. Okay, that's what Peterson is getting at.
How dare you even imply that I could even that it's even logically possible that I would be in a scenario that I would have to lie.
I love it because he goes on and he says, if you find yourself in that scenario, he says that you are so far gone that the mistakes that you've made up to this point are irreversible or something like that. I'm like, whoa, this is wild.
And Parker's about to put in like in an example here where it's like, and then he just refuses to engage in it. He refuses to like engage in the analogy, and I don't think that's being genuine or honest.
Like in like Nazi Germany, and it is the case that there's like Jewish people in your attic and you're trying to protect them.
Example.
Would you lie to like the Nazis?
I would have done everything I bloody well could, so I wouldn't be in that situation to begin with. It's a hypothetical.
I love how serious he is.
This is personal.
What?
This is personal for him for whatever reason.
Parker just needs to go, okay, Dad.
It's not answerable.
Hypotheticals?
No, I can't answer a hypothetical like that because it's far. Look, don't play games.
I'm not playing games. I'm just asking if you ate it.
If you present me with an intractable moral choice that's stripped of context and you back me into a corner, you're playing game. I just told
you. It's not a game,
I would do.
It's challenging your belief to see if you're consistent, to see like at the most absurd state if you would be consistent in that. It's not a game.
From a virtue ethical standpoint, I kind of get where Peterson is coming from because there are so many moral inputs, cultural inputs, and these metaphysical hypotheticals people use in ethics. It's hard. So like in virtue ethics, we sort of have this like this snobbery, like when it comes to like trolley examples, like, that's not how ethics is done. We're not answering trolley problems.
Yeah.
But like, at least on the other side, though, Parker is using more of a real world example. You can picture yourself in Nazi Germany. You can picture yourself hiding Jews. What are you going to do? It's a lot different than a trolley problem. So I kind of like, I'm just trying to be fair to both of them here. I kind of get where each of them is trying to come from, at least.
Yeah. If I was Parker, I would have just adjusted the hypothetical to something that could be answerable.
Well, but Jordan kind of made the statement though, like I'm not going to engage in these hypotheticals. Like I'm not going to reduce myself to this. Yes.
Yeah. Jordan would never. Parker could have given him the best analogy ever. I think Jordan would not have answered it.
Do everything that I could to make sure that I'm never in that situation. By the time you've got there, you've made so many mistakes that there's nothing you can do that isn't a sin.
Being born in Nazi Germany and trying to protect people that you care about, like there could be a Jewish friend that you have and you want to protect them.
I think you should
have
just
them
give
in your
up on
attic.
that line of questioning.
Give up on just like.
I just feel like he's grumpy and doesn't want to talk.
Well, it's
I blame him though.
I feel like what he's going through is like, you know, when kids are young enough where they're in this why phase where they ask why about everything. Like, go over there. But why? But why? Like, I feel like that's how Jordan is viewing Parker.
My kid's doing that right now.
Yeah. It's like at some point you're just like, listen, I'm done answering your why questions. Just do what I said. I feel like that's how Jordan feels right now.
I don't think he's justified though.
It's like trying to clarify your position because you don't like. Are you like uncomfortable with me asking this question? It's just a basic hypothetical. Like I could ask you.
It's just a basic hypothetical
like
where you're
like
you put Jews' lives at stake in Nazi Germany. But
that happened.
Obviously, you would lie in that scenario to save their life, but you're like not trying to answer this question.
For
some reason.
Like John,
that's a real life scenario that like actually went down. People were actually there.
Think about it from like, again, just to try to be charitable to JP here a little bit. It is hard to actually answer it when you like take seriously the moral weight of some of these things, and depending on what things you value and what things you don't value and all this other stuff. Like there's also like the classic atheist question of like, if God told you to kill your kid, what would you do? And it's like, I don't know what I would do, and I really can't answer the question.
But right? I think in this specific scenario, is not as deep as he's making it out to be. I think if I asked every single one of you right now if you would lie about hiding Jews in your house, all of you would say yes.
Yes, I agree with you, John.
Yeah. One of the things I was going to say, right, is also Jordan's background. Like prior to 2016, he studied for years the entire, like everything he could get his hands on about the major atrocities of the 20th century. So for Jordan, he knows all the ins and outs of what happened and people that actually went through this. And he's saying this is not a simple hypothetical because there were people in these situations and it wasn't as clear cut as he's saying it is. So just to like also steelman his like side as well. I think that he just has a lot of background information around these circumstances that he's just not going to give a binary answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just told you why.
Are you anti-fascist? Like, so you're
why are you asking that?
I was just asking, just clarifying.
Antifa!
Like, again, you're not
clarifying. You're not clarifying anything. That wasn't even brought up.
Nah.
Answering this hypothetical because you know it shows that you clearly would lie to save someone's life.
I'm answering it in
Obviously,
a
that's not
manner
what
you
truth
don't
is.
find acceptable.
Obviously, because I care about truth.
I wouldn't be in that scenario.
Obviously, right? Logically, because that's already happened. Like that's in the past. You don't have a time travel device. We're bringing this logical hypothetical up to show you that in some circumstances that do happen within the real world, you would lie to save people's lives. So your definition of truth isn't actually how we're typically using it. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to muddy the waters when I ask you, like, do you believe this? Do you think this to be true? So you don't actually have to answer the questions. And plenty of Christians don't like that because they clearly see that you don't really like want to be associated with Christianity.
I can imagine that I was in a situation where the best I could do as a consequence of my previous mistakes was to tell the least amount of lie I could manage. But that would likely indicate that I had made all sorts of catastrophic errors on my way there.
So you would lie to save someone's life. So again, you do believe it to be true in that circumstance, even though you like lied in that
I actually think Jordan did give like a coherent answer there.
I think you can actually run. Guys, I'm not trying to be like, I don't mean this as a
Jordan
joke.
whisperer.
I mean, it's real.
Oh, we got a simp.
Okay, listen. I think you could run a mitigated modal skepticism argument in favor of what Jordan is saying. Because I think that what Jordan is saying is it's like saying, well, hey, conceive of in your imagination a iron bar floating at the top of a body of water. Jordan would say, that's not an iron bar, because iron bars don't flow at the top of the body of water. So what you're asking me to imagine is something I actually can't conceive of, because that's not an iron bar. So I think he's saying, like, if you're going to take modal logic, I think Jordan's actually like somehow applying that in the background here. And he's having skepticism about how far our modal scope goes in entertaining these hypotheticals.
I really don't think this is what's happening.
Yeah,
that's what I think is happening.
I can imagine
the bar
on the water.
It makes me feel good.
I can imagine the bar on the water, though.
Yeah, okay. You can.
Wait, is it an iron bar, though?
I can imagine it. It doesn't mean that it could actually happen.
What is even iron?
I mean, yeah, exactly. I don't think you're imagining an iron
Is
bar.
it something you pump?
What do you mean? I know what's happening in my head. It's an iron bar sitting on top of the water. I can make many things in my head happen that don't have to adhere to the laws of nature.
Okay.
I'm not going to get into this.
Without the context that I put it in.
You were not willing to die for it. You were not willing to let other people die for it. So that's not what you see to be true then, seemingly.
You're doing exactly what I said you were doing at the beginning of the conversation. You're generating an impossible, restricted, hypothetical with no precursors to back me into a corner.
How is it possible? Is there something contradictory?
Okay. None of that was about the actual claim morality and purpose can't be found within science, which is just obviously true. You can't find them in science. There's a reason we have the is-ought fallacy. There's a reason we have G.E. Moore's open question argument.
Well, did they even talk about science?
No, I was so annoyed. I was like, this is a good one to go, not even getting on.
I feel like there wasn't much to get out of that conversation.
Nay. I need some advice, says Iron Eyes. I feel like I can't intellectually defend my faith, but emotionally I feel like it's incompatible. Do you guys have any advice?
Are you saying that you feel like you feel emotions about reality that are incongruent with your beliefs? Like, if that is that, I'm trying to figure out how to interpret this.
Well, if you're saying what I think you're saying, I said handle the latter first. Handle your emotional quandaries with your faith before you start even worrying about intellectual conversation.
Yeah, I would say that. Also, I would say, remember Jeremiah 17:9. Emotions can be very deceitful. We shouldn't trust them. If you want firm foundation to believe in Christianity, you have to study the evidence for sure, if that's what you mean. But I'm not entirely sure by the question. I would say
it really depends on what you mean. I in my work when I work with people like from my church and people that are going through trauma and stuff like that too, I often find that people tend to compartmentalize their emotional, spiritual, and intellectual lives too much in such a way that there's like you're not treating or living the Christian life in a way that you should be, because all these things are compartmentalized. And so just as a byproduct of the way your psychology works, if you're not emotionally satisfied, you're not going to be truly intellectually satisfied at the same time. So there's a lot going on here. I guess I just need more context as to what's going on.
I think I understand what they're trying to say. I think they're saying that they have no issue putting it down in a mathematical equation on why the faith can work, but they're wrestling with it in their emotions, and they're like, God can allow certain evils because of X, Y, and Z, but when they see those evils,
that's an easy assumption, right? But there could be emotional struggles just from other things happening that are not.
I'm just giving an example.
So that's what I'm saying. It all depends on what the emotions that this person is feeling are connected to, and what those emotions are. I can't really answer that question apart from that. Mike, you muted.
Sorry. JP is very continental in his thinking. I love his approach, but not in debate setting. We think analytically, so using continental confuses. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. It's definitely more continental. And,
yeah. If you're going to do a debate, analytic philosophy is much more useful.
Yeah. Any books like The Incarnate Christ and His Critics, but for individual gospels? I don't think so. I do want to do videos on those where I just show Jesus's God in all 4 Gospels. So I don't know any books like that.
Yeah, I mean, my script on adoptionist Christology is getting reviewed soon.
Yeah,
and we'll have some stuff coming up on that.
I think JP's angle is that he's not going to say he's a Christian. He'll show by his actions and let others determine whether or not he is. Maybe.
I don't know, because he says, who dares to say that they're a Christian?
Are y'all getting the Switch too? No.
Yes, I'm so excited, dude.
What a nerd.
I have it pre-ordered. It's going to show up June 5th, apparently before 9 a.m. I'm very excited.
We still haven't played VR together. I'm just saying.
My VR headset's broken.
Lame excuse. Ever thought about writing a book? Maybe IP if he's getting a PhD. Yeah, I'd love to if I have the time. It's hard to do that. I've not had the time lately. No.
My book has turned into a 3-volume series so far that I'm working on.
Presup is you already have Jews in your house too. I have family killed by Nazis for being Catholic, and Frank analogy is lame. Good job, IP.
JP. Man, you are really full of yourself, Mike.
Sorry, I'm exhausted. We've been going for 2 hours. I'm ready to close it down. I have no idea what this is.
I thank you for the super chat.
Yeah. Can I shoot an email? I can flesh it out better without a word count.
You can shoot it at me if you want. So I'll need a sufficient number of days to respond because I'm a little backed up at the moment.
I know exactly what that looks like.
What do you mean by sufficient?
Would you do a duo debate with Jay Dyer? Yeah, possibly. If we're debating like Muslims or atheists, and we could agree on how to debate. I think we could probably agree we were debating Muslims.
But, you two aren't going to debate the Catholics?
No. But how do you know I'm not Catholic, John? How do you?
Okay, look, everybody already knows. Everybody knows that Mike is a Unitarian Muslim Universalist.
I thought he was Mormon.
I did. I took my shahaka. All right, I'm ready to close this out. If you guys any more super chats, put them in now because I'm done. All right, Tim, promote your nonsense. Go ahead.
Alrighty. So on today's menu, no, but legitimately, you guys have never seen me before, been on here a few times, but I run Doxastic Mastery, which is just Greek. Doxastic means belief, so belief mastery. I teach you how to move beyond just low-level apologetics into thinking very clearly about your beliefs and building a worldview from the ground up, where you can help yourself create your answers. And you don't have to write out an apologist all day long, listen to endless podcasts, read endless books, and you know what you're doing time and time again. I actually just released a course, and so if you want to go ahead and subscribe to my channel, you can totally do that there. If you also want to get customized, personalized coaching on any particular topic using a set of core frameworks that can help you out, go ahead and also look at that as well. You can find that on my website, doxasticmastery.com, and I can talk to you there.
Yeah. Tim will also be one of the mods on the Discord server once we launch it as well, and so you'll have direct access to him there once everything launches.
Hey, John, what do you want to promote?
I want to promote that no one buys Stan's book.
Okay.
And I guess I got a Patreon too. Give me money because that's the only reason we do this.
John, remember the one time I joined your live and then got you like $200 in super chats?
That was great. That was because of the TTS, and people were just like, I couldn't turn it off, and the text to speech was going. But yeah, I yell at people. Basically, I just have an open platform debate channel. I'm planning on branching out into like more reaction videos, kind of like what we did here today. I don't know when I'm going to do that. I need the time. That's my issue right now. So
I just recorded a reaction video this morning that will probably be up in 2 weeks or so, responding to a Muslim saying that, yeah, cousin marriage is halal. It's all good. Allah knows best, guys. And I'm like, okay, this is a really good one. I'm going to do this, but it's on the list to come out.
Incest is wincest.
Oh my gosh.
I found some nice reviews showing how horrible it is that I cited in that video. So
reviews of incest, like people did it and they were like
reviews
5 out of 7 wouldn't do again or something like that.
No, medical reviews of the damages that
I'm joking.
Genius.
Hold on, but isn't the entire human race all derived from incest?
Yeah, Adam and Eve.
Oh my gosh, I hate you guys. Saint Athanasius has a good story about not lying. It's a false dilemma to say to lie or the Jews will die. Also, Than, can you DM your shirtless pics? Listen, that comes with donations, guys. You want a shirtless pic of Than.
I'll send the shirtless pics out for
listen. How about this, you guys? If what month are we in? If by September we get to me being fully funded, we will come out with an IP Than calendar.
But only on one condition. I get to do December, and it's just me looking very angry holding a mug.
But only sweater.
And we will have our diversity in there as well. We'll have John as the Canadian model.
Hey, IP, I like your content, but when are you going to post the content I actually subscribe for? Minecraft gaming content. Yeah. Well, okay.
Once the server drops, perhaps we can record some gaming content like that.
I mean, that's what Destiny does. Destiny just does his normal stuff while gaming. You just do the same thing.
I want to play the game if I'm going to play the game. I want to talk. And
I had a few attempts on exploring reality when I was there, doing like gaming and a stream at the same time, and it was pretty fun. So
those who don't like JP are gay. You see?
What's wrong with being gay?
True. Yeah, what's wrong with being Tim?
Exactly, dude.
Yeah, he's tired, man. Look at him. He's
everyone thinks I'm either high or tired on your stream, bro. I'm just chilling over here.
It's both. I'm just vibing.
This guy's vibing. That's who's vibing. Is Thanakin Skywalker. So before we what was I gonna say? Yeah. Again, we are still trying to fund to get Than full time here. So the donation link is below. Please go donate. We need more monthly donors to get Than up to where he needs to be. Please subscribe to my guests and watch John debate atheists on his channel, or be an atheist and debate on his channel. And you can
Muslims too.
Oh, good Lord, help you.
Or me when I come to troll him.
Witches, like I've debated people who thought they were Jesus. Like we can do that.
That's awesome. Yeah. You can contact him if you want like life coach or worldview coaching. He'll help. If you're emailing me constantly expecting me to answer all your questions, go to Tim. That's who you do. Contact him. He'll do all that. I don't have the time to. I'm making videos and running a ministry. I cannot be your email buddy, but Tim can. So contact Tim at Doxastic Mastery.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do for you.
Yeah. How much shirtless pics or to shave your heads? Not shaving my head. My wife.
Done.
All right.
10 grand. 10 grand. I'll shave my head right now.
Like I said, if I'm fully funded by September, we need about. I think for me, we need another like about 1,000 a month, and I'll be fully funded. For me to shave my head, I will do it. I just don't know the monetary value there. Mike, how much should the donation be to shave my head?
You heard it, 10,000.
10,000? That's not the number I gave.
What did you want? You want higher?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't know what the. Okay, how about this? I will ask my wife for the monetary value of my hair.
That's a good one.
Mine is price.
I did ask my wife. It was 10 grand.
I'll text her. Really quick.
My wife said I'm allowed to shave, so I'm not shaving.
Man, I'm the only one without a wife. This is great, dude. I can do whatever I want. That's what's up.
That's because you're gay, Tim.
Oh, I forgot.
IP response on rose deer analogy. Yes, see my video, The Problem of Suffering, a Christian Response. I address basically that throughout the video.
Read Trent Doherty's book on animal suffering.
Yes. Anyway. Thanks for coming. I'm going to be live on my channel tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern with 2 ex-Muslims. We're going to be looking at some funny Muslim videos and responding to their lies, because that's what they do. That's what they do. They lie. So thanks for coming. Please donate. Come back tomorrow. We'll be live again. I'll at least be alive again. Then I'm going to Britain. So if anybody wants to know,
across the pond.
Yeah, I posted on the community wall where I'm going to be in London. So if you want to come see me like next Tuesday, I think it is, you can do that. So thanks for coming, everyone. I'll see you guys tomorrow live on this channel. So take care. You made it to the end of this video, which means this message matters to you. If you want to see more content like this reaching people for Christ, you can help make it happen. Your support makes these videos possible. Click the link below and donate today. And if you want to go even deeper, consider joining our Patreon community. You'll get early access to videos, behind-the-scenes content, and a place to connect with others passionate about this mission.